It is 5:01, and we are calling this work session to order. This is a special meeting of the Kent School District Board, which is held in public to comply with the Open Public Meetings Act. The purpose of this special meeting is a policy work session for 1 hour. We thank those of you who have come to this meeting and those who are viewing via our live stream. The purpose of the board meeting is for the board to conduct its business in public. Public comments are not included on the special meeting work session agenda. Individual with items for the board or superintendent must provide them directly to our safety services staff. Approaching the dais or work session tables during the board meeting is not allowed. Any items turned in will be provided to the board and the superintendent following the meeting. To begin this meeting, we will take roll call for attendance. I'll call each board member's name, and if they are present, please indicate so by saying present. Director Cook.
Present.
Director Williams.
Present.
Director Song.
Present.
Thank you very much. And just for our audience, Director Song is attending via our live stream. And Vice President Gregory.
Present.
And then I am present. And to start our session off, Superintendent Vela, could you kick us off, please?
Thank you, President Margell, members of the board. I want to start this evening by again thanking our board for all the work that they've done to this point on policy work. As you know, it's time-consuming, but it's the good work that keeps us moving toward what we all want, and that is success for our kids and our families. So thank you for all your hard work. Without further ado, we'll turn it right over to Pam Hawley, our policy coordinator.
Good evening, President Margell, members of the board, Superintendent Vela. I just want to say that I appreciate the work the board does on the policies, the feedback. Director Williams, I know that you sat in on meetings before you actually became a board member, so you kind of know how it runs, but I'll just go through really quickly, as I do every time, about the policy classifications so that everybody's aware of how they're classified. We're going to start with policy 5000. Recruitment and selection of staff. This is a second reading. There was language at the bottom of the policy last time that was old WASDA language. That's been removed, and the policy's been updated to reflect the removal of that language. That was the only change the board had asked for. Does anybody need me to pull it up to look at, or are we good to move on? Good to move on?
Good to move on.
Next, we have policy 5010. This is discrimination-free workplace. The title of this is a first reading. The title of this has been updated to reflect a change in the language contained in the policy. This sentence, to promote equal employment opportunities, the district will develop a program or plan in accordance with WAC 392-190-0592. That WAC is Public School Employment Affirmative Action Program. So the affirmative action part has been removed from the title, but that is referencing affirmative action in the policy. Director Williams stated, one of our goals is to have staff that better represent the students. Will this policy hinder that option? HR responded by saying, removing the affirmative action language does not hinder our recruitment priorities of hiring high-quality staff that best represent our students and communities. The district's recruitment efforts include the district commitment to Goal 4, investing in a diverse workforce and inclusive workplace cultures. Affirmative action represents our organization's utilization of underrepresented groups compared to our surrounding area. This data can support our recruitment plan in identifying underutilization for specific employee groups. We will continue to have the definition of protected status under the language of the EEOC section for that WAC. The change in this section supports cleaning up the duplicate language instead. So that was the answer to your question. Additionally, the language about employment of persons with disabilities has been expanded, and the complaint process and retaliation language has been included. Director Williams also asked, if someone is harassed, would retaliation of being harassed both by the harasser and the harassee fall into this situation? I want to pull the policy up so you can see it. let's look at the red line instead, it might be easier. So I think we're asking for clarification on your question, Director Williams.
My thought process here was oftentimes when you report harassment, you are then, the person who did the harassment retaliates against you. I'm wondering, is that addressed in this policy? As well as sometimes these things get really muddy. You know, there's harassment on both sides and that so where are we addressing that in this policy, I guess is just my question.
And a
So-
follow-up to that for clarification is there a different policy that
different-
covers that piece?
So if I may, really quick, the policy is often broader, so if there's a procedure sometimes would have the steps that might be addressing certain things, but I'll turn it over to,
No, Israel, that's exactly what I was going to respond with. Most of the time when issues land on our collective desk from an HR perspective, right, not only do we start with the policy, but we look at the procedures that will help us determine what our next steps are as we are navigating, right, whatever the issue is. And this issue, Director Williams, you brought up as the harasser. Yeah, we always start with the policy, then go to the procedure to determine what our next steps will be in terms of resolving the issue, if that helps. Okay.
Any other questions? We good to move this one forward? Yes. Okay. Next, we have Policy 5281, Disciplinary Action and Discharge. This policy is new to KSD. This is a second reading. Per the board's request, language was added, including definitions, the cross-reference to Policy 5251, conflicts of interest staff, and the language, in all cases, collective bargaining agreement language and state law will prevail. Those were the items the board had asked for. Can pull that up. Questions? Good to go?
I'm good.
Yep,
Okay.
we're good.
Director Song, I just want to check in. You good with that?
Yep.
Okay, thank you. Next, we're at policy 5283. This is the last of the HR policies that came back for a second reading. This is a KSD-created policy adopted in 2014. The language has been updated to address the board's comments regarding the last day of employment and when district property should be returned, as well as language around full-time leave of absence. Let me pull that up. Again, that was per the board's request. HR made the adjustments.
I'm good with this one. Good,
Okay.
I want to make sure that. Okay, yes.
We're good to move forward.
Okay. That was the end of the HR policies that were brought back for update. Okay. Now we're on to new policies that are first reading, not new to the district, sorry, but first reading. Policy 3416, medication at school. Two things were in this policy that were changed. The medical marijuana on school premises is not permitted, and that's addressed in this policy. And language specific to the administration of medication to preschool students has been added to this policy as well. There's the first edition. There's the language about preschool students.
I'm good with it.
There's only one question I have. So kids, they're going to have short-term medication. And is there a procedure that goes with this, that how they add that and everything, and that's clear and it's out on our
Absolutely, yes.
site and everything? I just want
Yes.
it for the public, right? I just want to say, you can add medication or remove medication from that list throughout the school year as the needs of your child changes. And I think a lot of people are like, oh, I filled it out at the beginning of the year and I can't change it, right? But that is allowed. So I'm just clarifying that that is allowed.
Yes, it is, and there's, I think I've shared before, we have individual health plans, I believe, at each school where they would be updated regularly if there are new medications that are provided, or there may be other changes or just more recent things. So I believe that's what we have in place.
Yeah. I just wanted to call it out for the public because I've gotten that question.
Seeing no further questions, we can move on.
Okay. Next is 3417, catheterization. This is a critical policy, but it's not been reviewed in more than 10 years. A section has been added about the conditions in which it is authorized, but other than that, it's more of a review. That language I'll bring up for you to see. Again, it's been almost 11 years since this has been reviewed.
We're good.
Okay.
Thank you.
Next, we're at 3419, self-administration of asthma and anaphylaxis medications. Again, it has not been reviewed in almost 11 years. There are no changes to this policy. I should say no substantial changes.
Yes, I'm
Yep,
good.
we're good to move
Okay.
forward.
Sorry, yes.
That's what I'm doing. Thumbs up.
I think I'm going to have to start doing that.
No rush.
3420, anaphylaxis prevention and response. WASDA revised this policy based on House Bill 1608, expanding access to anaphylaxis medications at school. The updated language includes information about the distribution of emergency care plans to appropriate staff, the addition of dairy as a potential life-threatening allergen, and the school supply of epinephrine.
Good. Dawn? We're good to move forward.
Okay. 3410, this is an important policy. Student health, again, more than 10 years since it's been reviewed. Only one RCW was added as a reference, and that's the only change in this policy.
I do have a question about AEDs and,
We're not there yet on this one.
We're on 3410.
20.
3412 is,
Sorry, 10. Did I
Sorry.
miss
Sorry.
one?
you
No.
did, I went to the wrong one. It's
we're
my
at
fault.
3410.
We're at 3410. Student health,
Director
it's fine.
Gregory has a question about the next one. We're
I
good.
have a
Okay.
question about the next one.
Okay.
We're good to move forward.
I'm all over it, okay? I'm running ahead today.
Okay. 3412, automated external defibrillator, sorry, AED. It's another policy with no substantial changes, but it has not been reviewed in more than 10 years. For the board's information, every building has these. Every gym has them outside of the gym at the high school level, French Field, and all of our security patrol vehicles carry AEDs.
So my question is, who is trained in how to use them? So I know that if you get basic first aid and you can have the enhancement, I have the enhancement on mine where I can have the AEDs. But the question came up from students around this policy for me was, they wanted to know, kids in school are trained on them. Are they allowed, at the direction of someone who's taking care of a scene, can they go pull it? And that was just a clarifying thing. So I wanted to hear from the district that, yes, in an emergency, someone who's can use it should be using it. Is that correct? Or can we speak to that kind of process
Yeah.
while it's happening in that moment?
We do have our Assistant Director of Nursing Services, Ms. Duff. If you talk a little bit about the training that goes.
Good evening, Director Cook, Board, Superintendent Vila. My name is Deanne, and I can speak towards that. I can tell you that within the law, there are specific staff members that have to be trained. And within our training, our Red Cross training, we do include that AED certification portion of it. As far as students, if they do have a certified card, an actual card, I don't see that there is any complications in them pulling it and using it. It is actually a very simplistic machine, and it talks you through every single step.
Yeah.
There's really no way to, if they put it on their leg, maybe it would not work. However, it is very simplistic on how to attach the patches, and it guides you very calmly every step of the way.
Yeah, I just wanted to pull it out because I think it's one of those medical devices that we didn't have for a long time. And then we're like, oh, these are very important. And we should invest in buying these and putting them in school and then put training behind it. So we just don't slap it on the wall. We actually have the training and guidance behind it. But I think a lot of our student athletes, we hear about this all the time. They're on the field and all of a sudden they just fall down, perfectly healthy person, but they have an atrial fibrillation problem. So I think it's important that students should feel empowered if they have that certification to talk to their coaches and their teachers and saying, I have that certification, just to make people aware, but also to go get it, right? We should encourage them to engage in that way and go get that type of certification. It's helpful for everybody.
Can we remove the references that have nothing to do with this policy on this one? They're about charge cards. It's municipal corporations and political subdivisions, charge cards for officers and employees of travel expenditures, and local government's use of credit cards.
Let me look it up and see where you're pulling that from.
The bottom, legal reference.
Oh, the legal references at the bottom?
Let's see.
While we're looking at that, Ms. Duff, if you don't mind, just for my own edification, what types of employees in this district would have that certification and we would refer to if necessary to use an AED?
Right, from what I have researched, it's the nurses, of course, the health techs that work under the nurses, anyone who works in the health room should have this certification should have the certification and could use the AED machines. Also, I believe security has to have it, as well as CTE teachers who are teaching the students in their classes, their health classes, as well as bus drivers.
That's really cool. Thank you.
Yes, President Margell, that language will be removed. It gets input to board docs, so it would have been caught for sure before it got posted. We good to move on?
Yep.
Okay. Okay, 3418, response to student injury or illness. The title of this policy has been changed and includes language that staff designated to provide student health support should be certified in first aid, CPR, and AED.
Okay, I'm sorry, I just wanted to make sure I understood this one. In a case of an emergency, it's saying that only designated staff that will provide that emergency treatment if they are certified in first aid, CPR, or AED. Am I reading that right?
Yes, ma'am, you are reading that right. However, there is the Good Samaritan law that covers anybody who is first on site to assist the student or the staff member who is going through a medical crisis. And then they would be alerting the appropriate staff that have supplies that could potentially help the situation.
I think that line's talking about like the AA2s out at the building, that they have to be certified in first aid, CPR, AED, that they actually provide the student health support when the nurse is not there. But I don't think it means anybody that happens upon an emergency, but it's talking about the staff that are actually designated to provide the health support must be certified in those things.
Is there a way to, I guess I was confused that the student health support, and that makes sense to me, if you're working in the nurse's room, that you have those certifications. Is there a way to make that a little clearer? Or am I the only one who doesn't read working in the health room from just under the title of emergency, and it's talking about emergencies, it seems like that would be part of the, I don't know, if I had an emergency.
I think it
Whoever
says
told me.
staff designated to provide, I mean, we could call it out to say staff specifically designated to provide health room support or health support.
I wonder if your question might speak more to building protocols. I'm just thinking in my own experience, when I've had a student in a medical emergency, my job was to contact the health room and 911, and then to monitor the student until more help could arrive. Like I wasn't giving the anaphylaxis, I wasn't doing the CPR unless it was absolutely necessary.
And I think that that's the point, and that we were talking about, like, the reason that the AED machine is written in a very simplistic way is that anybody could provide it. And so I guess that, to that end, staff designated to provide student health support, like, i.e. work in the nurse's room? Like, is that what we're saying? Because, or non-emergency situations, or in daily protocol, or,
We could say
I guess
health
what I
tech.
don't want to is, in an emergency situation, and you're the person there, we would want that person to help. And it doesn't seem to allow for that in this one. And I hear you, that we do have the Good Samaritan law, but that's not specified in here. And so it feels like that those are like, oh, but we know that, it's just not said here.
Is it referenced in the, I didn't check, is it referenced in the legal?
No.
No.
Let-
Oh, it was. Good Samaritan law was, we just strike it.
Let's look at it without the red line. It might read
Okay.
easier that way.
If I may, President Margell, also for the board to consider is staff designated could also be a one-on-one IA. Oftentimes, an IA is in the classroom or out at recess with them. Or we do have IAs, I believe, that are on buses in some cases, providing one-on-one. So it's really designated, those specific staff designated is broader than just a health room, a
that's-
classroom.
That's exactly my thought, is I feel like if you specify it just a health room, it's not gonna be broad enough.
And again, I totally agree with that. I just don't want to preclude the ability of somebody in an emergent situation to be able to help somebody and not be in violation of the board, like, we don't want them in violation of board policy. So that's all I'm asking is some clarification to make sure that they're not in violation.
Would it
And
make sense to bring the reference to the Good Samaritan law back on the legal references?
I'm going to look it up because there may be a reason WASDA struck it. There might
Oh,
be something
WASDA
in there.
struck it.
Yes, not us.
Got it.
Yeah,
That's a clarification. Thank you.
yeah.
I think one of the challenges I have with this and how it's written as is right now without the red line, the challenge I have with it is, yes, I understand there's someone designated like in the health room or whatever, but for me, this policy is a response to student injury or illness, which means we're walking down the hall and the student is sick or something has happened. I am the staff member that's there. I'm not designated. That's my challenge with the thing. I'm not designated to be a health support person. I am qualified to do it. I have been credentialed. I have first aid. I can respond to the situation, but I'm not designated. So my challenge with how it's written right now, staff designated to provide student health. I get that we're talking about the health room or in certain, yes, I agree with that, but I think, again, it needs to be somehow, so it says if you have this certification and there is an emergency and you're first on scene, it's on you.
I guess my pushback on that, though, would be oftentimes building protocols are that unless you are the staff designated person, yes, issue emergency care, but you also are, if you're the first person on scene, required to, notify that staff designated person. And that's what I think this is really getting at.
Attributing to, okay.
The line's calling out that the people that are designated must have these credentials.
Not
It's
that
not
other people
talking
shouldn't.
about who
Got
should
it.
or
Yes.
shouldn't.
I didn't read
in
it
fact,
that
it
way.
says, the next one says, the board encourages all school staff to become certified in first aid.
So
Okay.
it's really kind of like talking to staff that are hired under these conditions. You must have this training and credentials.
Okay, the board recognizes that schools are responsible for providing first aid or emergency cases in the injury or illness. To that end, staff designated.
What if we moved that line only? Staff designated to provide student health support must be certified in first aid, CPR, the end of it, to the very end, separate it from this so that it calls out that it is noting who must have that certification.
Yes,
Would that help?
so we move it to the bottom.
To the bottom, right before the
Right
superintendent
before the
part.
superintendent, that would be helpful to read.
So-
So right, now it feels like it's colluding two different work people.
Okay.
And that would pull it down and make it clear to me that those are the people in the health room, or assistants, or techs, or whoever.
We can bring it back for approval, and if it doesn't read the way you would like it, we can bring it back again.
And we'll check the Good Samaritan piece as well.
Yes.
Yes, for sure.
Perfect. Thank you.
Thank
In
you.
in addition to that, oftentimes, what we learned at our WASD, that they're constantly looking at these specifically, so we're going to make sure that, why was that struck? Is there a particular reason, a legal reason potentially?
Exactly.
In addition to the certification, so, my team will do that background and bring it
Fantastic.
back to you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We're good to move forward.
Okay, we're on to policy 1210. The next three policies are board-specific policies.
President Margell,
Yes.
if you wouldn't mind, I think we're done with all our human resource policies, so I would like to
Do they want to go
release them if I could.
Thank you so much for all of your
You
work.
are
Thank you to our
welcome to
HR
stay and
team.
hang out with us, though.
Thank you for coming. Thank you for answering our questions.
Yeah. Thank you, team. Yeah, all, whoever's, yeah.
Thank you, guys.
Superintendent Bella, you do have to stay.
Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Okay, policy 1210, annual organization meeting. Changing the language from every other year to even year. This was off, it was incorrect in this policy. It needs to match the others that talk about even year for legislative representative elections. Also adding the sentence, in the case of emergency closure cancellation of the first regular meeting in December, board elections will be held at the next regular board meeting in January. We should strike the January part too and just call it the next regular meeting in case for some reason we went beyond January, so that we wouldn't be violating policy. It would be the next regular board meeting if for some reason there was an emergency closure or cancellation.
Agreed.
Agreed.
Yeah, just for context, recall, I think it was this year when, oh my goodness, it was our last meeting and there were potential power outages and, you know, it was an interesting time. So we began to look at this language and thought, you know, we need to bring this up. So appreciate the board's consideration and allowing us to really right-size this with the WASDA and law, et cetera. Thank you.
Okay. On to policy 1220, board officers and duties of board members. This is a second reading of this policy. We added language concerning what happens if a legislative representative's position is
Before we
vacated.
went on, did we all agree, though? Sorry.
Oh, I'm
No.
sorry.
Yes,
Yes.
okay,
Yes.
yes.
Okay.
Sorry, I just wanted to make sure. Thank you.
If a legislative representative's position is vacated before term of 2 years is up, we've added language noting that the legislative representative will be the voting delegate at the assembly, so those two changes in there. And then Director Williams asked the question, what happens if the legislative rep is unable to attend the assembly due to illness or other absence? So I looked, and the 2025 assembly was fully virtual per WASDA, and the vote, was fully virtual. They had said that the vote can be transferred to another board member, one vote per board, so one person would need to be delegated to cast the vote, but the whole board can attend. There's one vote allowed per district, so someone else could cast the vote. So that was the answer if someone was unable to make that.
How is it decided who the backup legislative person is? Like,
That's a
how-
good question.
Yeah, how do we make that decision?
I think the board sets policy, and the board it says delegate, and you would have to delegate, and I was going to ask the board to consider, these are all possibilities. Example, in this case, the legislative rep could have been doing all of the analysis, the work, and on the day of, that's why I really appreciated Director Gregory attending the last session this last weekend, and that all of us are kept abreast of what are the priority initiatives and things, so that when we do end up on the floor as a delegate, that delegation is not a totally new thing for a board member that might be delegated. So I want to just point that out, but it would be the board who decides how they do that.
I would think that it would be dependent on the situation. Like, so it would be like, if you are ill that morning, I would assume you would, so if it was me and I was sick and I'm not going to be able to do it, I would call President Margell and it would defer to her automatically, or if she's not available, Dawn's available, Dawn would step in. I guess it would be availability maybe, depending on what the situation is. Or if it's a known, right, like we know they're not going to be there, we can delegate at a meeting beforehand, so the public would then be clear. fluid in the moment, we would have to make the decision on the fly, right, because of illness. But if it's like a known entity, you're not going to be available to be there on Friday and we have to vote, then we would bring it up and discuss it.
That's how I'd handle it.
I'd be
that
really
help?
interested to hear Andy's thoughts, since
Yeah.
he's our current legislative
Yeah.
rep.
Yeah, two things are coming to mind, and this isn't written into our policy yet, but with our last legislative rep, I joined them this year as me taking over that role. I had Director Gregory join me. It might be nice to revisit and look at the definitions of possibility of, I guess maybe like some way to transfer this information. I've been documenting a lot of the activities I have been doing. And this is something that I'll constantly share with the superintendent, but I'm wondering if maybe that's also something that should be shared with the president so that they have access to all of that. But I don't know. I guess those are the two things that I'm considering. Is one, should we have in there where another board director possibly joins and is kept in as like a secondary of that information so that we have a backup? Or should we just, could we create like a SharePoint where I upload, or whoever the next legislative rep is will upload the data, the documents, and notes so that the president could access it, or any other board member, but delegating it directly to the president to respond?
President Margell, what do you think?
I kind of feel like a different question was answered than asked. All good information, but I would say that as president, depending on the situation, is it emergent? You're going to deal with something in the situation, which it is. If there's a little bit more time, then we have a little bit more time to be able to deal with that. I wouldn't necessarily, for the expense of the district and just people's time, and that there was a person who was elected, I wouldn't say that for everything we do, we have to have a second person there too, right? So so answering your question, and that's, I think it would depend on, right? It's a difference of, I got food poisoning the morning of, and there's no way I'm going, compared to, oh dang, I have a family wedding out of town, I'm gonna be gone on that day. What does that look like? So those would be handled in the situation that they come in. The other about transferring information, I feel like that the legislative report is a great means for doing that. I like that it's in public. I like that it's an opportunity for everybody in the board to be able to ask questions, and that's how I have seen it. So that's one of my favorite ways. But I'm not against if there's other things you're like, hey, I got this really cool piece of information that I would like to make sure is available for future legislative reps. I'm sure that there's a way that we can make sure that that's available to people, but the legislative report has been kind of that tool that we've used, and I think it's a good one.
Do we have, this is just, again, I'm learning. When we have a legislative report, is there a written document that's made of that report? Because I know in previous meetings, Director Gregory has shared, like, one of her learning styles is to be able to read the information and sit and process that information. So I'm just wondering is there a document for the legislative report?
In the past, some legislative reps have chosen to do it that way.
So maybe
It's a
that,
personal choice, and I think, I don't know, if I was legislative rep and somebody said like, hey, I really need this, that might be a good way to be able to work with that, but also not wanting to put additional burdens on what that looks like, so.
Yeah, and I would also reiterate that and add that I work very closely, the superintendent in all districts, work very closely with not only board president, vice president, but the legislative rep on aligning ourselves. That's what was the beauty of this last weekend is, and I think over the last several years, we've really aligned ourselves as a state and representatives in a way that we've kept ourselves abreast of. So what are those key priority initiatives or bills and things that we are, the buckets, the 3 buckets is what I keep thinking about. And so I know that in the past, in my role with the partnering with the legislative rep, it is, we talk, for example, with former Director Clark, we share information, and from that, Ms. Antella would put on the screen kind of two slides, and he would review them. But in the background, there was the information that I may have shared with him, or information he had garnered with some of his research or analysis, or he sometimes would ask me questions about things, and we would, co-author or co-create some things, so.
Awesome.
But I appreciate Dr. Song in saying, hey, we're already working very closely right now on what we're doing on the 27th, I believe, and continuing to do that. So I would work closely. So I appreciate the conversation about the line of communication where, hey, it just happened. President Margell, Superintendent, here's what, I have a lot of information and support that I can give whoever that delegate could be.
Well, and we have a backup plan, like if President Margell is absent for any reason, whether it's emergent or not, we have a backup plan, because we have Vice President Gregory. And I guess that was my only question is, if Director Song is unable to attend, whether it's emergent or non-emergent, what's the backup plan? And it sounds like we have that. That's what I was looking for.
Perfect.
But I do like Andy's idea of putting, like, who he met with or like notes that he has, like in a secured place that if we needed to, we could access that, or the next legislative rep can access that. So they know that he talked to this person and this is kind of what they talked about. So that way, when you go in and talk to senator or congressperson or whoever, and Director Song met with you on blah, blah, blah day. I'm here, the new rep, blah, blah, blah. Or, do you know what I'm saying? That would be helpful. That would be invaluable. And I know it's work, so.
No, and I think that that's, along with that, a kind of a yes and, I think back to our retreat and talking about when we meet with people that we meet 2 at a time, right?
Yes.
And so that's why the importance of that advocacy is not done just by the legislative rep.
Right.
Right, and so we do things, and so having those conversations, for me, I think that it's great that we're not making Andy go all by himself, right? And so that we can help participate in that too, or of course, have a member of administration with us.
Right.
My only concern with the idea of having some sort of like note place that we put everything is OPMA, and if we have multiple people that have access to put information in there, then that could lead to us possibly making a mistake in that realm. So I don't know if there's a way for us to have more of a just deposit information where you cannot change it, you can't remove it. It's just there for review for us. And I don't know if we would be able to make that public, because there's not any information that wouldn't be.
Not public, but what I'm saying is, I was looking at it is he would put it in there. We would only access it if we needed to cover his duties. Does that, we would only review it to act, if we
If
were
you were
acting
acting,
as the legislative
Yeah.
rep, but otherwise I wouldn't have access to it. It would be a
Oh.
place that he would be able to put his information to retain it for record.
I see. I would like access to it. I think that'd be great information to have, if so we can update it and see what's going on, but also so that we can review it over time. But I don't know.
That's a good idea.
I don't know
I
that
didn't
there's-
think broadly like that. I like that.
Yeah. I don't know if that's something that we could change or add. Thoughts, Director Song?
I mean, I guess what I'm drafting is I have a few things. I know right now Ms. Santello is one of our lines of communication. And so perhaps starting at the next regular board meeting, as we have legislative updates, since I have to send her the information anyway, she has all of it stored. And so if there is a situation where I'm not able to attend or speak on behalf of it, the board can reach out to the superintendent and access my latest report from Ms. Santello and all other reports.
Cool.
Yeah.
Cool. We have a plan.
Yeah, I appreciate that, Dr. Song. It's what I do now, is I'll give Ms. Santello information prior to this last, and make sure that our legislative rep gets this, vice versa. That's what Dr. Song will do. So I like that.
Awesome. Thank you so much for just giving us the space to have that discussion. I appreciate it.
The only other concern I have throughout this policy is there's a lot of wills and that sort of stuff, which, as I've said before, I'm not a huge fan of when we're talking about the board where there's no enforcement mechanism, for us to say that each member is obligated to attend board meetings. Well, as far as the state law says, yes, but they're not required to do any more than one every 4 regular meetings, which is the requirement by RCW. If you also look at other parts in here where it's talking about board members will not assume responsibilities of administrators, and I agree, they shouldn't be doing that, but us saying they will not indicates to me that we have some sort of enforcement mechanism, that if they don't, what happens? Because there is no enforcement mechanism. The only thing that we can do is censure the board member for doing so after the fact, but as far as us making it so they don't do that, I mean, obviously the staff wouldn't need to adhere to anything that a single board member told them. That's obvious, but I just don't like the idea of using will. I would like to change a lot of that to should, just because we don't have any way to force that sort of thing to happen.
Oftentimes, in my experience, when looking at procedures like this, a code of conduct, duties, et cetera, we use the word shall.
Yeah.
Are you comfortable with that?
Well, shall is the same as will, because a shall is a legal term, meaning that you are required to do so, and you're not. Like, that's the problem. When you're talking about staff, our policies and procedures are required to be followed by staff. As far as board members, that's not the case. Board members are a little bit of a different entity in that they are elected by the public, and the public decides whether or not the person stays or goes. And they're the only, outside of resignation or doing something egregious enough for a judge to remove you from office, there's really no way for us to hold them accountable in that way. And that's why I'm hesitant to say, because I don't like the idea of us indicating that this is something that you have to do. Yes, you should. And having should, to me, tells a new board member, hey, this is not something that we can force you to do. And it's something that should be talked about as well. But it's not something that can be forced upon you. It's something that you should be doing as part of our policies and procedures because we think that it's important that you do it this way. If you don't, there may be ramifications, but that's not something that is realistic. Other than censure, there's nothing that we as a board can do.
Well, I think even just saying that, though, other than, that is a ramification of it, right?
But it doesn't stop someone from doing something.
There's not many things in life that you can physically make somebody do or not do. And so but still, as the boardsmanship of the role is that there is still things that are appropriate and inappropriate for the role. And so for me, it's not the size of the stick that is enforcing it. It's still the rules and the protocol of the role itself and living up to kind of what the best of it is. And so for me, I'm very comfortable with the language.
I understand. I just, to me, it's problematic from a perspective of new board members may not understand why, what the difference is between will and should, and why that distinction to me is important. And the reason that it's important is because it indicates in the language that we understand that we don't have control over our board members directly in that way. And it shows that we are taking that seriously in that we will not try to say anything that we can't enforce, because we can't. The fact is, yes, we can censure, but that's as far as that can go. And censure doesn't do anything as far as removing anyone. It doesn't stop anyone from doing what they're choosing to do. If they do things that are illegal, of course, that's going to have ramifications outside of our board, but we wouldn't be enforcing those. That wouldn't be something that we could even realistically enforce. Now, of course, if there's something if you're, malfeasant or misfeasant with your actions, those have ramifications too, but those are not ramifications held to by the board. Our board doesn't have that control.
What are some alternatives?
Aside from should.
I mean, anything, to me, it doesn't matter, anything that doesn't indicate that it is a requirement. That's my concern with it.
But it kind of is a requirement. I mean, when you look at this, if you were to substitute all the highlights with should, it doesn't seem to be as serious, maybe.
It doesn't, but it also isn't as serious, because there is no enforcement mechanism. There's nothing, literally nothing that the board as a whole, or any individual board member, or anyone else within the district can do to stop them from doing these things.
I hear what you're saying, in that this policy is different as it because it's applying specifically to board members, and as board members, we are elected officials. We are not employees of the district. And most of these policies, if you violate a policy, there's a very clear consequence. So I hear what you're saying here. Where I run into issues is the idea of should makes it sound, to me, that this is a 50-50 choice. And I think President Margell put it really well in, these are best practices. These are the expectations. This is what is appropriate of a board member. And so I'm not opposed to changing the word will. I don't like the word should.
See, I guess I would see that as if we use the word can instead of should, because should indicates that this is what you should be doing. Can would mean that the 50-50 that you're talking about. If you said that they can serve as the spokesperson of the board, that means they can or cannot. If you say should, they should be serving as a spokesperson for the board. Now, there are things that we can say like, and it would be a little bit different in the rules for president, because that is something that the board can remove. So like in your role as board president, you will do these things. If you don't, consequences are we're going to remove you from your presidential position, right? But on other items where we're not talking about a specific task for a specific position, we don't have control over it. And so I don't have a problem with will when we can do something about it, in which case like the president, the legislative director, and the vice president, all three of those positions are things that we choose as a board and can be changed at any time. And so if you choose to go down those paths and you're not doing the things that we require as a board, we can remove that from you. Now, when you're talking about the duties of the regular board members, that's a different story, because we don't have control over whether or not any one of us is still here. We don't have any way to do anything with that. Now, us individually, of course, could, if we wanted to file a recall petition, that would be an option as a member of the community, as any member could. But that's, again, not something that we have control over as a board, if that makes sense. And obviously I'm one person of a 5-member board, so if everyone else wants to go a different direction, that's totally fine.
I understand, and when you just clarified, the officers of the board, it has to be will. Like, you can't change the language in the first 3 sections of that, because the president will run the meeting. And if they don't, then someone will have to step in and will remove the president. I think is the correct choice of word in the officers of the board section, I guess. I have, should is not, I have a problem with should too. I think it's not measurable, I guess is how I'm gonna describe it. It's not a measurable word. I can't measure should, right? And I always think of that when I'm reviewing something like this, can I measure that activity? So board members will not assume responsibility of administrators or other staff. That is measurable. Did you do it or did you not do it? Yes or no? So should doesn't give me, it would be board members should not assume responsibilities. I don't think I can measure, I guess that's why I have a challenge with should.
What if we changed it or looked at some of the other language to say like that board member is expected to do this or like is permitted?
Yeah, Yes, then it's,
Permitted, again, goes back to can. You can, you cannot. It's a 50/50.
Fair, yeah.
yeah.
Again, I go back to, I'm good with the language as it is today. It's not, again, I'll say that it's not the punishment that defines what good boardsmanship is. And so I would hope that people would always strive to be the very best that they can be. And that's what we should, as a board, be doing.
But again, you said should.
Yeah, and
Why can't you say will?
Because we
Because you
still
don't
have
have
people on
control.
this board that don't always do that.
Yeah, of course. And any
And
board
so,
does
but
that.
that doesn't change what the definition of a good boardsman is.
But this isn't
That
talking
people
about
work outside of that, there's still, the duties are still the same.
But what you're talking about is, what is a good board, like, what should a good board be doing?
Yeah.
And if that were the policy, I might agree with you. This is not what that policy is. This is the duties of board members, which is a different thing. I don't know if everyone would be okay with something along the lines of being obligated to, because that to me sounds stronger than should, but not quite to the point of will or will not, or shall or shall not.
I mean, I could go through and look at obligated as a potential word for like, you are obligated to review the review.
It's
To
it's
the
the
review
same
agenda.
thing, kind of like what President Margell was saying. I think if we kind of move away from just the surface level semantics, we're left with two options. One is going to be more mandatory, and one's going to be optional, regardless of which words we choose to use. So I think our conversation should be more focused on, I guess, that values clarification on whether or not we want to be determinative by using a like a mandatory term versus an optional term. And I don't think we can get beyond that, because right now it sounds like we're kind of torn between those two, and we're just throwing out words that fit within those two buckets.
And,
It is
and
used
one
in
of the
there.
ones that you brought up that you didn't like, the word obligated is the word that's there.
I didn't
So
say
each
it like that.
member is obligated to attend board meetings regularly.
Yeah, and I didn't have a problem with that. I had a problem with will.
I have a proposal. One of the best practices when you talk about building classroom procedures and rules, right, is you always frame things in the positive. And when I look at duties of individual board members, when I see the word will, frequently it is followed by the word not. Could we look at a draft of those statements framed in a positive? Board members will, and then whatever the thing is, like, you know, don't chew gum would become something, I don't know, I'm just going off the cuff, but I'm trying to
I
think
hear
about
you.
it. You hear what I'm saying?
I'm
Like,
following along.
Yes.
Framing it in the
Framing it
positive.
So it says board members will not assume responsibility of administrators or other staff. You would want it to be board members, you want it to be positive.
Yeah, I don't want to, like, removing the word not, we can go back to, you know, board members will, and then whatever the definition of the board members.
Appropriately
Yep.
Yeah.
communicate
Yeah.
and
Right,
interact with.
exactly.
I hear what you're saying. I do feel like that those are two different things that you're asking for, because if the idea of will is the issue, just putting it as will without in the positive is not changing that at all. Unfortunately, it is 6 PM, so we do have to call this meeting to adjournment. So it is 6 PM. We are adjourning for an executive session for 30 minutes. The purpose of this executive session is to discuss the performance of a public employee, potential litigation, and the legal or financial risks of a course of action. We will see you back here at 6:30 for our regular meeting.
Thank you, board.
Hopping on to the next link.
Good evening. It is 6:31, and we are now calling our regular meeting to order. Our executive session adjourned at 6:27. Board members in attendance for the executive session were Director Gregory, Director Williams, myself in person, and Director Cook and Director Song virtually. We will now start our regular meeting, and we will start with a roll call for attendance. I will say each board member's name, and if they're present, they will say present. Director Cook?
Present.
Director Williams?
Present.
Director Song?
Present.
Vice President Gregory?
Present.
And I am present. Vice President Gregory, will you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much. Very welcome. Welcome. Glad to see so many faces in the audience today. This is a meeting of the Kent School District Board, which is held in public to comply with the Open Public Meetings Act. We welcome the public's participation in the board meeting and thank those of you who have come to this meeting and those who are viewing via our live stream. The purpose of a board meeting is for the board to conduct its business in public. During the meeting, the board will listen to but not respond to comments from visitors. Whether made verbally in person, verbally on video, or written, comments are limited to a total of one per person per regular board meeting. One additional comment per person may be submitted for a public hearing topic if there is a public hearing on the agenda. All forms of public comment are subject to Chapter 4256 RCW Public Records Act. The public may comment at regular board meetings in a manner authorized by state law. All comments must adhere to Policy 1420 and 1420P. If you wish to make a comment to the board, comment forms are available for completion prior to the meeting and must be turned in no later than the beginning of the legislative report. No forms will be accepted once this report has begun. Comments are limited to 3 minutes. Public comments will be heard after the agenda review. Students will be the first to speak on any topic during the student voice portion of the agenda, which takes place immediately following this opening. General public comments from non-students will be heard during preliminary communication from the audience. Any remaining comments, whether from students or non-students, will be heard at specific agenda items and during the final communication from the audience. Student comments will be heard first on any topic. Please state your first and last name prior to the beginning of your testimony. Abuse of public comments personally directed towards the board, staff, or students will not be tolerated. The use of specific names or personal identifiable information of board, staff, or students is not allowed. Board members or KSD staff members may interrupt or terminate an individual statement when not adhering to Procedure 1420P. All comments...
Hey. Oh, sorry.
All comments, whether verbal or written, must adhere to the standards of civility as defined in Policy 1400, Meeting Conduct, Order of Business, and Quorum. If you're seated in an overflow room, join us. We have a whole bunch of seats in the front. There is a brief delay in the live stream audio. We allow extra time for you to make your way into the boardroom after your name is called. Individuals with items for the board or superintendent must provide the items directly to safety services staff. Approaching the dais during the board meeting is not allowed. Any items turned in will be provided to the board and superintendent following the meeting. We will start with our land acknowledgement. The Kent School District Board of Directors acknowledges we reside on the traditional lands of the Muckleshoot Indian tribe who have lived in this region since time immemorial. We honor their continued stewardship to this land, its waters, and its communities. We commit to ongoing learning, meaningful partnerships with Native communities, and uplifting the sovereignty of the Muckleshoot people. We now move to item 1.07, the agenda review. Superintendent Vella, are there any changes to the agenda?
President Margell, there are no changes to the agenda.
Is there a motion from the floor?
I move to approve the agenda.
Second.
A motion's been made and seconded for the approval of the agenda as written. We are now open for discussion. Seeing as there is none, a motion has been made and seconded for the approval of the agenda as written. All those in favor, please raise your right hand and say aye.
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 The motion passes 5-0. We now move on to Section 2.0, Student Voice. Ms. Antello.
President Margot, we do have one in-person student comment, no online video, and no online written for students.
Perfect. Our first speaker is Cooper Williams.
Good evening, members of the board. My name is Cooper Williams, and I'm a junior at Kentwood High School and a current Running Start student. I'm grateful for this program as it gives students like me the chance to earn college credit while still in high school. But I also recognize that my ability to participate comes from a certain amount of privilege. Having my driver's license and a car that I can use for transportation to Green River makes that possible, which isn't the case for all students. This discrepancy raises the question, why make Running Start an opportunity if the very students could benefit the most can't even get there? For almost every other enrollment barrier, there are solutions, fee waivers, placement test alternatives, but transportation remains an immovable wall. The new Kent Des Moines Light Rail Station across from Highline College shows how expanding transportation options can make education more accessible for students without cars. Green River and the Kent School District could benefit from exploring additional transit options, since true equity depends on ensuring students can reach opportunities in the first place. Public transit doesn't always line up with class schedules, and many families simply don't have an extra car to use for school transportation. Right now, the program is serving mostly those who already have resources instead of those who need it most. I hear the word equity often used as administrative verbiage and within the Kent School District mission statement, but if a program is only accessible to those with certain resources, then it's not equitable in practice. Your Running Start program guide states that students can take classes at any community college as long as they have transportation to the college. That transportation requirement directly contradicts the equity statement. In practice, this requirement turns equity into just another buzzword. Students without the means to get there are left out. I've noticed how this affects students at my school. I've seen students plan rides with one another, and that gesture has made the small difference between a student attending or not. But the system should not rely on the luck or generosity of another teenager. Running Start should not continue in its current form if it's not accessible to all students. There are solutions. The district could use high schools as hubs, running a bus once in the morning and once in the afternoon to and from Green River. Students could ride the regular morning route to the high school and then take a shuttle to the college and return to the same way in time for their rides home. Some current school bus drivers already have gaps between routes, and aligning with Green River's class times could make this work. Other options include carpool programs or volunteer drivers. The point is that solutions exist if this challenge is taken seriously. I'm not here to criticize the district. I realize that resources are limited, especially in the recent budget crisis. But I am here to state the obvious that unless transportation is addressed, Running Start will never truly be equitable. I ask that we begin making reliable transportation a part of the conversation so that the program truly is equitable, serving all students and not just those with resources. Thank you for listening. If board members or even community members would like to continue this conversation, I would very much like to hear from them and begin to set in motion the possibility for change. You can reach me directly at Kentwood or Green River. Thank you again for this time.
Thank you, Cooper. As part of decorum, we do ask that we don't cheer, clap for comments. Thank you. We now move on to the next section, the preliminary comments from the audience.
President Margell, we do not have any in-person comments from the audience. There were no online video or online written comments.
Thank you. I'm sorry, is there a constant beeping noise?
I hear it too.
Is there a way that we can stop the beeping noise?
No. I can't stop it. I'll try to turn it down. Apologies, there's an incident here.
Okay, thank you very much.
Okay, thank you.
And everything's okay with that?
Yep.
Okay, thank you.
I do have to be able to hear slightly, so.
Oh, no, that's great. I just want to make sure that's not just me hearing beeping.
No, you're good.
Okay. We, yeah, I'm reading if any of these comments need to be said. We're good on this one. Okay, thank you. We now move on to section 4.0, and I will call upon Superintendent Bella.
Thank you, President Margell. Whereas the mission of Washington's public school system is to ensure that all students achieve at high levels and possess the knowledge and skills to be responsible residents of a democratic society and enjoy productive and satisfying lives. And whereas Washington's 295 locally elected school boards and 9 elected educational service district boards are the core of the public education governance system in our state. And whereas the districts and regions they lead serve more than 1.1 million students, have a combined annual budget of over $16 billion, and employ approximately 120,000 people. And whereas school directors play a crucial role in promoting student learning and achievement by creating a vision, establishing policies and budgets, and setting clear standards of accountability for all involved. And whereas school directors are directly accountable to the residents of their districts and regions, serving as a vital link between members of the community and their schools. And whereas school directors and educational service districts provide a passionate voice of advocacy for schools and the welfare of school children. And whereas it is appropriate to recognize school directors as outstanding public servants and champions of public education. Now, therefore, I, Bob Ferguson, Governor of the State of Washington, do hereby proclaim January 2026 as School Board Recognition Month in Washington, and I encourage all people in our state to join me in this special observance. Signed this 31st day of December 2025, Bob Ferguson, Governor of Washington State. I wanted to take a moment, not just to read the recognition, but to also just to acknowledge our board, both past and present, for all the work that you do. This is an elected position that you have, and you do this for the children and the community of the district that you serve. So I wanted to say that, and I wanted to say how honored I am to be working with each and every one of you. Each of you brings something very special to our board, and as a board and as a whole, I look forward to things that we will be accomplishing together on behalf of kids, staff, and our families in this community. So thank you for what you do. This month, we get another, our next regular meeting to acknowledge you. You have in front of you some cards that have been written from different students, staff, and schools. We also will be populating our boardroom with many of the signs that will be coming in. And I always look forward to all the different signs that come in and look forward to visiting those schools and thanking those student groups that do that. So on behalf of myself and my team and the entire KSD community, we thank you for your service.
And I do believe that there is a video.
Yes, there is a video. Thank you.
Every day, we walk into our schools without fully realizing the countless people who make these spaces possible. Behind every classroom, every safe hallway, every opportunity for our students, there are individuals whose dedication often goes unseen. Our school board members are among those quiet pillars, guiding, supporting, and making decisions that shape the future of our children and our community. Today, we pause to recognize your commitment, your time, and your unwavering belief in what education can do.
Because of you, I can dream about going to college.
When someone believes in education, you can feel it in every classroom.
You may not know my child, but you changed their future.
The decisions you make reach Scenic Hill every day. We appreciate everything you do for us.
Excelente! Cảm ơn. Teşekkür. Gracias. Gracias. Gracias por apoyar nuestro programa de lenguaje dual. Thank you for supporting our dual language program.
Thank you, Ms. Intel. And if you wouldn't mind, please joining me in front of the dais for a picture. Would appreciate it. Thank you. Thanks.
1, 2, 3. Thank you. Thank you.
We also just thank you very much to our different schools. We have some very cute origami from Meridian Elementary. We have signs around from our different schools within the district, from middle school, high school, and some of our elementary. So it's nice. Thank you very much. And most of all, thank you for not putting our pictures as the opening on all of the kids' computers this year.
Yes. Thank you.
Yes. So, wonderful, thank you. Our next proclamation is Director Williams for National Mentoring Month.
Whereas the Kent School District recognizes that its success is rooted in the success of all students, and that a strong foundation of support is essential to helping students achieve their full potential and become well-educated, confident, and productive citizens. And whereas mentoring is a proven effective strategy that helps students by matching them with a caring, responsible adult who can provide guidance and direction and build their confidence. And whereas more than 1 in 3 young people in our country will grow up without a mentor. And whereas research shows that mentors play a powerful role in providing young people with the tools to make positive choices, attend and engage in school, and reduce or avoid negative behaviors. In turn, these young people are 55% more likely to be enrolled in college, 81% more likely to regularly participate in sports or extracurricular activities, 78% more likely to volunteer regularly in their communities, and are more than twice as likely to say that they held a leadership position in a club or sports team. And whereas National Mentoring Month is an opportunity to raise public awareness of the importance of mentoring, recognize the dedicated individuals who serve as mentors, and encourage more citizens to help build a brighter future for Kent School District's youth through mentoring. Now, therefore, be it resolved, the Kent School District Board of Directors proclaims January 2026 as National Mentoring Month and urges all citizens to recognize the importance of mentoring and to look for opportunities to serve as mentors in their community. Signed this 14th day of January 2026.
Thank you very much, Director Williams. Our next section is presentations, and I'm excited for an early learning update, and I'll call on Superintendent Vela.
Thank you, President Markell, members of the board. Excited to share with you a presentation my team is today, where you will hopefully gain a good understanding of early learning, in particular early learning and early child development. And next, really, what are all those opportunities we have for not only our youngest learners, but also for our community in terms of options for early learning. So without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Rebecca Kim, our Associate Superintendent of Teaching and Learning, to introduce our team for this evening's presentation. Dr. Kim.
Hello, thank you. Happy School Board Recognition Month. President Margell, Board Director, Superintendent Bell, and Ms. Curry. I am honored and excited to introduce a team that is going to share more information to you and to our public and our community around early learning. We have a landscape of early learning that we want to share with you, some of the intentional collaboration that's happening across departments, and then data that is going to be quite interesting for you to see, especially as we think about equity and access to Running Start and to our earliest learners in KSD, our pre-K students. With that, I am going to introduce two of my esteemed colleagues from our curriculum and instruction team from Teaching and Learning under the direction of Executive Director Cynthia Green. We have Karen Stevens, Assistant Director of Curriculum Instruction, and Jenny Antrobus, one of our specialists who specializes in early learning. So with that, come on up.
Thank you for the opportunity. Excuse me, sorry. Thank you for the opportunity to share with you an update on the early learning that's happening in the Kent School District. Investing in early learning is one of the most effective ways that districts can improve long-term outcomes, not only for students, but as the system as a whole. During our presentation tonight, we'd like to show that through expanding access, aligning systems, and ensuring high-quality experiences, we can create equitable, meaningful outcomes for all children. Again, our team, I'm Karen Stevens. I'm an assistant director in teaching and learning, and one of the areas that I have the privilege to lead is early learning. And I'm here, and the presentation will also be given by Jenny Antrobus, our early learning program specialist. For context, early learning within our program tonight, or within our presentation, is really birth through third grade is what's considered early learning. We will cover all of those with more of an emphasis on preschool and kindergarten. We're excited to share that Jenny and I were both selected to be part of the UW Early Learning Leadership Cohort. It is a wonderful organization that provides us professional development. We work together with other learning specialists across the state and with a lens on best practices, research-based improvements in programming, and creating high-quality, inclusive learning environments for young children, families, and our communities. And at our training, we're always talking about creating joyful experiences. So I hope that tonight is a joyful experience as you learn about our early learning program. I want to start by sharing our why. Our why is simple. Early learning matters. The foundation children build before and during kindergarten carries into their long-term academic, social, and emotional success. The slides that follow in this presentation highlight what the research says about early learning and how we translate that into action in the Kent School District. Our program, the early learning program, supports our strategic plan, especially goals 2 and 3. And then tonight, our agenda includes a review and a discussion of our key data. We're going to look at the overview of what is our current landscape, what early learning do we provide. We'll talk about the benefits of early learning, and we'll end with some next steps and questions around early learning. So let's move into data.
All right, so as you can imagine, assessing a 5-year-old provides some interesting challenges and capabilities. So WAKIDS is our assessment that we use for our incoming kindergarten students. And this is really an observational assessment, which we look at their readiness. And there's 6 domains that we'll kind of dive into around that. There also is a teacher-family component within that, and that's why kindergarten starts a little bit later. So kindergarten, if you can recall, starts 3 days later, because those first 3 days are really a time for families and teachers to get to know one another and kind of have that initial kickoff. So within this data we compile, we use it for various reasons. We can use it to figure out strengths and needs. We also can use it to figure out professional development, both for our teachers and our community around. So diving into that WAKIDS data, the graph here gives an overview of WAKIDS and the 6 domain readiness for each year. So looking at those readiness, we can see here, last year, our students were approximately 45% ready to enter kindergarten. And this year, we've seen a slight decline with a 39% readiness. So keeping that in mind. As I mentioned, there are 6 domains. So teachers are looking, observational, taking in data for the cognitive readiness, their language, literacy, math, physical, and social emotional. So within these areas, we've started to look at trends and patterns that are emerging. Math consistently is our lowest area. So math things is like counting, quantifying, one-to-one correspondence, shapes is kind of falls into that math. Physical remains our highest area, most ready for kindergartners incoming. Now, physical is larger than just their being. It's looking at skills. Can they walk up and down stairs? Fine motor skills. How do they grasp pencils? Their writing skills. So this just gives a look, and again, we can see a decline from last year's readiness to this year's readiness. Thanks to help from our assessment and analytics colleagues, they were able to put together a dashboard where we're able to track students from year to year. So in this graph, we're looking at WA Kids data from last year's preschool students that were in our Title I preschool programs at Park Orchard and Meridian Elementary compared to students that did not attend those preschool programs. They may have been in a different preschool program, but not part of those cohorts, and looking at their WA Kids readiness for this year. And here we can begin seeing some differences. So the bottom chart is those kids that were in Title I preschool, now in kindergarten. About 50% were ready in all 6 domains, compared to our 36% of students not in those programs. And as I was analyzing a little further, I even looked at how many were ready in 5 domains, right? That's still a good chunk. So if we look at that, 75% of kids in those Title I programs were ready in 5 or more domains, compared to 49%. So that starts to get a little larger, a little more variable. Last year in the fall of 2024, I also reached out to Child Care Aware of Washington to gather some data to look at how many of our families and community are accessing preschool. So here we found in King County about 46% of families are having their needs met by preschool availability. Within Kent, we have 44%. And our zip codes, right, Kent is vast. There's so many different areas. It's a range. We have about 37% to 76% of families having preschool needs met. So in your appendix, in your PowerPoint, it dives into more of those zip codes and where those ranges all are at. But I'm just going to call out the 2 lowest zip codes with needs met. So our families in 98042 have the greatest unmet need for preschool access. So there are 9 elementary schools in that area. 4 of them have preschool programs within those elementary schools, and they're underlined on the slides. The next greatest need unmet is the 98031 area. There are 7 elementary schools there, with 4 of those containing preschools. So thinking about this, right, there are some great disparities there that we can see. So enrollment tends to vary there. There's a community request for transitional kindergarten programs. But as we look at those challenges, we're looking at facilities, right, staffing, and then the budget constraints that continue to exist. So looking at how can we continue to work through those. So Karen's going to take us into our landscape.
This is our current landscape. Thank you for sharing the data. So what programs do we offer in Kent? So we have 3 distinct programs that I'm going to talk about tonight. We have our developmental and peer model preschool. Our inclusive education department provides an early childhood special education developmental preschool for children who qualify for special education services. Within this program, we include typically developing children as peer models. The peer models help by demonstrating age-appropriate skills and providing socialization opportunities, which supports the learning for all of the students in the program. This is a tuition-based program. It is a half-a-day program, and we offer this at 10 of our elementary schools, and we partner with our special education department to provide this. Another type of preschool we have is our Title I preschools. You looked at the data just a minute ago from our Title I preschools. They are both schools that were in those 2 highest need areas for preschool. We opened a Title I, or we have a Title I preschool at Park Orchard, and we have Title I at Meridian. These programs are supported by Title I funds, and enrollment is based on income. They are half-day programs. There is no tuition to attend, but you must live in the Park Orchard area or for Meridian, in the Meridian area, and we have expanded Meridian to include both the Millennium and the Daniel area, so kids can pull from those areas to go to that Title I program. Our third type of preschool that we offer is our Career and Tech Ed preschool. We partner with our CTE department, and we provide preschools in 2 of our high schools. We have our high school students who are getting CTE credit work in those preschools, and those preschools are housed at Kent Ridge. We have the Little Chargers program, and at Kentwood, we have the Conch Kids, and these programs are tuition-based. In addition to this, we also have really strong partnerships that provide preschool to Kent School District students. One of the ones I want to talk about first is our KYFS, or our Kent Youth and Family Services Partnership. They provide preschool for children who are economically impacted, ages 3 through 5. They have to live in the Kent School District for those services. They provide Head Start and ECAP, which are both federal and state-funded programs. And the way that we work with them, or the way that we partner with them, is that we provide the facilities for them to house to provide this service. And we have several. We have this partnership at Jenkins Creek, Kent Valley, and Springbrook. And then they have 3 other sites within our community that they also provide services that are not our schools. But we have those sites in general. They are not tuition-based, but kids do need to qualify to attend those programs. We also partner with the Bezos Academy. That's been a lovely new partnership, started a couple of years ago. They provide preschool opportunities for children who are economically impacted, ages 4 and 5. It is funded by the Day One Academies, which is part of the Bezos commitment. They serve 100 children, mostly from Kent, but not only, but they serve 100 children using a Montessori-inspired curriculum. And it is, there is no tuition to attend, but you must qualify for the program. And we support by providing facilities, training, and connecting their staff with our kindergarten as kids move from their programs into our programs.
All right. Washington's birth rate has dropped about 22% since 2007, and the decline has continued from 2020 through current year 2025. The orange bar on this graph shows each year's birth rates, and the blue bars are representing that year's kindergarten enrollment for the year represented. In analyzing this data, the kindergarten enrollment does not perfectly track birth rates, and so it would be suggested that other factors may be playing a role into enrollment due to the variation and differences there. So as we continue to think about preparing kindergarten students, I also want to mention class size, right? That plays a role into that. And so we're looking at class size last year. The range in kindergarten varied from 14 to 26 students with an average class size of 22. This year we're seeing kindergarten class sizes from 12 to 26 with the average class size of 20.
So now that you have the layout of the programs that we provide, let's talk a little bit about the early learning supports that we have in Kent. That's okay. I want to start off by talking about family engagement. This is some research around this, and what's especially compelling in this research is that kindergarten family involvement is linked to outcome years later. So strong early learning involvement with the family, with our early learners, we see a lower dropout rate, stronger persistence in high school, and higher overall levels of education attainment, beginning with that early learning. So, go ahead.
So knowing that research, how are we putting that into action? So this year we're holding some parent workshops intended and aimed at our families with children 3 to 4 years old. So based on some feedback and some information from families, time to come in and childcare and things like that was a little difficult. So this year we've recorded some videos and made them available with resources to families to access and utilize to get that kindergarten readiness a little more there. We also have been working to develop a webpage which is live with some details. There's some skills, there's resources, information on kindergarten orientation, and some other activities for families to access to help with kind of what to do in that readiness stage. Another resource that we've been showing and providing to families is Child Care Aware and BrightSpark. Our partner, our local partner for BrightSpark is based out of Renton, but they have websites and resources for families to access. So lists for preschools that are available in search, funding, classes, so a lot of different other options for families and community to access. So just sharing that as well.
In addition to this, the research shows that early school experiences matter. This research underscores why early learning is not just about readiness skills, it's also about ensuring teachers have the time, training, and conditions to build strong, trusting relationships with our youngest learners. So from this research, we've also put some of this into action.
Okay. So what does that look like? So kindergarten orientation is an opportunity for families with incoming kindergartners to attend the school and kind of figure out what's going on. So it's really a time for staff and principals to highlight, to showcase the great work and year ahead that's coming. In a minute, we'll take a look at a video that, with partnership from our communications team last year, helped us update a life of a kindergartner right at that beginning. So it gives them a preview of what that looks like, some of that joy that we've been talking about. Our team's also been out visiting classrooms and supporting teachers. I got the opportunity this year to visit our early entry kindergarten students to kind of see, right? We make this decision, and then how are they doing? So to go follow up on some decisions made and look at success and refine and tweak some of our processes. We're also collaborating with our inclusive education partners. So working through things of least restrictive environments, peer models, program structures, so how we can support these families, and then connecting with parents and community early learning providers. So really trying to develop some different professional development and resources around that. So one of the early stages that we are working with on our community is we're exploring the possibility of holding a preschool fair where we can offer families kind of what do we offer here in Kent, and if we don't have something, what other resources are available for them to access. All right, let's see. So here's our kindergarten orientation video.
Hi, my name is Christina Talame, and I teach kindergarten. And what kindergartners can expect is that they'll be working on building community and friendships. They'll be working on reading, writing, and math. We'll also be doing center playtime. They'll be doing art and science, and we'll be doing independent work and group work together. They'll have conversations with partners, with small groups, and they'll learn a lot of responsibility and a lot of citizenship while they're at school.
So writing down and up. Going up and down.
In math, I'm learning counting to 10 with cards.
I'm writing my rocket ship toy.
I write in my house. I read it about my house, my snowman.
Thank you. From the video, you could see some joyful learning experiences on the faces of our students. So thank you for that. In summary, it really comes down to improving access engagement, and alignment. Together, these efforts help to ensure that every child enters kindergarten with a strong foundation, and that foundation carries forward into long-term academic and social success. So our next actions, our next steps, are to continue and improve our professional development. We currently provide professional development for our Title I schools, Meridian and Park Orchard. Those two schools are the only preschool program within that school, so we try to connect with them and help them to connect with each other and some of our other preschool providers to get additional training for those teachers. We also provide professional development in our elementary schools in grades K through 2 with this program, and we certain targeted schools have asked for some support with their early learning skills in reading or their early learning skills in math, and we support those also and provide professional development for teachers to do that. In addition to that, we support our professional learning for our families, what Jenny talked about with the kits that the parents could check out for the wealth of resources and activities and videos they can do with their own children. So we're continuing some of that work. Expanding funding sources, we are always looking for additional funding sources for our pre-K program, our early learning program. We're looking at grants. We're talking with the state. The state has talked about cutting some of the transitional K programs in other districts and maybe redirecting. We've let them know we'd like to be on that redirecting list. So we're always looking for some opportunities to expand preschool within the Kent School District, and even looking at maybe changing or expanding our Title I preschools and what we can do to overcome barriers. So that's also one of the challenges that we have. There are certain barriers with preschool, and I shared some information about our current landscape. Some of our programs are only half-day programs, and our parents can't put their child in just a half-day program. They don't know what to do, or they don't have another plan for the other half a day. Transportation at some of our programs is also a barrier. So we are also working with our inclusive ed department. That's our next steps. We meet with them regularly to talk about how can we improve our peer models? What can we do in terms of helping with tuition, programming, transportation? How can we build up our peer models within that special education ECSE program? And how can we increase registration and the number of kids in all of our programs? And then lastly, we're working with our communications department as we're planning that community learning night. We want to work with them for how we can get information out to our parents and have our parents come in and learn about our programs and find out how to sign up and how to manage and be a part of that. So those are the things that were our next steps. So truly, at the heart of this is a simple truth. Early childhood education is the key to the betterment of society. We agree with Maria Montessori's statement there, and that's why this matters. I appreciate your time, and we're happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you very much. Open questions to the board. Director Cook? None? Director Williams?
I have questions.
Would you like to start with one, and we'll kind of do?
Of course.
Perfect.
I had the pleasure of reading I loved your slideshow, and I love data. You guys were so thorough, and you answered a lot of my questions through your presentation, so thank you so much. On slide 10, you shared with us the WA Kids readiness trend. And I know our kindergarten teachers are really feeling it this year. We've got our COVID babies in the kindergarten classrooms. I was wondering, what are we doing and what can we be doing to accommodate for that deficit for the 25-26 on the WA Kids readiness versus what we've done in previous years? So it's just one more slide back, but yep, that one.
So with that, we have shared this data with our district, all of our programs and all of our teams across the district office, and we've shared it with our schools, and they've seen their individual data for their school, and individual teachers have seen the data for their classrooms, and we're really recognizing that there is a strong need. This year we have a big focus on math, because our math is our lowest area. We're doing some work in our early learning programs and really across some of our elementary grades on improving math. Some of the work around that, there's professional development that's happening at every single school, every single school, and we're doing to improve our math instruction. In addition to that, we're doing work around literacy. We have our literacy specialists at the district office that works with individual buildings to work on how can we build our literacy skills. So we are targeting those areas that are the lowest and working with teachers and schools to improve.
Fantastic.
Director Song?
No comment.
Director Gregory?
So I'm going to the appendix. I know, sorry, I'm going to the appendix. There's an estimated need met by a zip code. You pulled out two that were the lowest at 37.67%, which is the 98042 and 98031 piece, but we have 76.19. Have we done an analysis of where these zip codes are in the district so we can kind of understand? Why is that number so high there and the other ones are lower or mid-range? Do we have that data?
Yes. Yeah, so the 76.19% is the Sawyer Woods area. And so access and potentially funding availability, right, out there is a little more prevalent for them to enroll in some of those preschool opportunities.
Is there a way we could look at that as a model to help the other areas? Is there something they're doing out there, so like access, availability, cost, et cetera? Are we talking to them about how they made that happen? Because that's a community effort, right, for that area to make that happen. But I'm just wondering, are we mining that data? I'm assuming we are.
Some of the other piece that I'm looking at is population, right?
Oh,
What
yeah.
is the population of that area with preschool students compared to our apartment complexes that may have a lot more students, which will then skew the data a little bit.
Yeah, it does skew the data. Thank you. I just wanted to, I know it just gives us one data set, but the challenge is we look at that and we're like, well, why are they so good, right? And then we start making assumptions. We all think, what? Oh, that must be Fairwood, right? But it's not always the case. So I just wanted to make sure that we call that out for people to understand that we are looking at more of just the data set of just this one number. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for that thoughtful question.
My question was around tracking of data for students that have gone through the different Kent School District or sponsored or adjacent programs, and how their test scores have gone specifically, maybe even comparative to, not saying that there's not great quality preschool outside of the district, but how do our students do when they've been in our program from preschool through comparatively? Do we have that data specifically?
We have the data for Park Orchard and Meridian because those kids directly start in that program, stay mostly in that building. So we are able to track that. The program from our partnership with KYFS, those students go to a lot of different schools, and that's harder for us to track. We try to look at our data in our peer models because those students stay within our Kent School District, and we've looked at some of that data and seen some real growth in the data that we have there. But mostly we are able to track the ones where they stay in that same school. But I think it would be really important to look at all of that data as much as we can. We are partnering with KYFS to get more information on their data, and then the partnership with Bezos are really good about sharing, what parents want, what parents are seeing, and then maybe tracking that data for them.
Yeah, and then also our little Chargers and our Conch kids. Sorry, I have love for our little Chargers.
Yes, love our little Chargers and our Conch kids.
Yeah, Conch kids are better. Just saying, I'm gonna go out on a limb.
Okay, yes, that data's a little harder because again, those kids feed into 5 or 6 schools.
And sometimes even other districts, right?
They do.
Sometimes
They do.
teacher
Yes.
students. Okay, that's what I thought.
Especially with the Conch kids. You see more of that at that program than we do in our Kent Ridge program. But again, that data is a little harder to track because they don't say directly from that program into a school. But I think it's important that we look at that data. And what we're seeing is about 50% of our kids have the opportunity to attend preschool, and that's about how many are ready. So I think across the board, the more that we can work on our alignment and expand our opportunities, the more that we can provide for students.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Director Cook, okay. Director Williams.
So I'm a secondary teacher, and as much as I want to understand and really get into it with elementary teachers, they operate on a whole other level than I do. Like, oh my goodness. So can you explain to me, please, the difference between pre-K and TK?
You want to take it from me?
And then secondarily to that, because I've heard from some educators in the district, like, oh man, like especially with these COVID kids, it'd be awesome to have TK right now. What do we need to do to make that happen? That's my question.
A couple different pieces to that. So pre-K in our realm right now is kind of half day. There's a lot of social skills, things built around that. Transitional K is really looking at what does it take to be ready for kindergarten. So there's a little more academic piece. There's a little more structure to it. It is a full day program. And so there's really some differences to that. As a mom that went, or my youngest is a COVID baby, he did half day preschool, and those first few weeks of kindergarten were rough. Oh my goodness. So there's just a lot of adjustments from I have to be at school for how long, and just the academic rigor was a huge jump for him. So there's different pieces for that. TK, there's some information in your appendix about it. Oh, I could go to it. Look at that.
There it is.
And so TK is really about your incoming kindergarten students. So the year prior, they're eligible for TK. It is an application process, so not every kid gets it. It's looking at need. So which kids would benefit the most? So it's kind of a scale based there for enrollment. There are some funding issues around that. And so funding last year ran short in March. So the state kind of had some unknown things. They kind of had to do a potential freeze, a potential, we don't know the status moving forward. And unfortunately this year they did not open it up for any new programs. We're in a bit of a holding pattern. They're expecting no new programs until 2027, 2028. And so at that point, they're hoping to expand by 5%. As Karen mentioned, I've asked to be on that list to be considered. So we'll see what that means, but that's where we're currently at.
And we were going down this path to add transitional K last year when they pulled the funding. So we weren't able to continue with that. So we are always looking for ways that we can add that and we can include, always following up with the state on opportunities for transitional K.
Director Gregory? I had a question about half day and full day. So I know that there's cost and everything about that, but you've mentioned it a couple of times where there's challenges for what do we do in the afternoon. Have we thought about working with partners in the community that would take over the half afternoon so we make it more seamless? So a parent signs up and then the morning they're here and then we transition them and they go here. Have we thought about doing something like that?
Absolutely, we've looked into that, and we're even thinking at the community night that we're going to have, we could have like our titled preschool information and talk about it being a half day, but the other half of the day you could go to this center.
Right.
And we would have transportation between those two. So it's absolutely something we're looking at. The way our inclusive ed program is set up, it is a half-day program, and they have kids in the morning, kids in the afternoon, two different sessions, but also working with them to see how could we transition kids or where could kids go for that additional training. And then we're looking at title all the way around. What if we did a full-day program? You know,
Right.
could we might not be able to have as many kids, but we might pull in some more kids from those areas. So we are looking at all of that.
My last question was around the two schools, and I'm sorry, I'm quickly trying to look through here, that have the, I believe it was Meridian and
Park Orchard.
Park Orchard. How is our enrollment at those ones? Like, do we have a waiting list? And is it just truly funding that keeps us opening from additional, or do we feel that we're meeting that need fully?
So those programs are not full, and we are working, we're working with our family liaisons at those individual schools for why are more parents taking advantage? There is no tuition to attend, but parents do have to transport, and it is only half a day. So we're working with our parents to find out, is that the barrier why we don't have more students? And then we're also working as a team across the district with our IE partners in curriculum and instruction for how can we get more information out to the community about there are openings in those two programs, and try to get more parents to sign up to bring their kids into the program. So they're not full, but we're working to make them full.
Okay, but we'll take students year-round in them if there's positions open? Thank you. Additional questions?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Sorry.
It's okay.
Always thorough. I think you guys really hit it on the head that there is a larger problem right now in education in general, in that we are seeing a decrease in enrollment. As we start to get into the financial piece of things, like that's such a key part. So as you guys were doing your data analysis, were you seeing that some locational areas were more impacted by enrollment deficits than others?
Yeah, I mean, so one of the things that I started looking at was class size, and I think there's even a size on that, right? Some of our schools are bursting; they're at capacity, versus others are not. And so starting to look at what, right, and some of that changed with our boundaries. So some of that's still kind of fresh data of fleshing out, of still seeing the rollout of our boundary change and how that is impacting some of our schools. But we are seeing some of our schools that have much higher numbers than others, and so kind of looking at what does that involve?
Do you have a general sense of like north, south, east, west in terms of enrollment? And you may not have that in front of you, and so I apologize for springing it on you.
So this slide kind of goes into the class size. So here lists our class in overload. It's in the appendix. It's slide 35.
But in addition to this, if we look at our 2 Title I programs, we have more attendance at our Meridian program than we do at our Park Orchard program. So we're also looking at that. Meridian was a title school and then lost its full title status and then became a title school again. So that's why we pulled from additional schools to go with that funding. But we're also looking at that. So for some of our schools, the 2 zip codes that we shared have fewer kids that are enrolled in preschool programs, and including ours.
Okay. Thank you.
The other thing is the classroom teacher, what you said, is that we can't provide opportunities yet as much as we would like for all the preschool opportunities. We also are looking at our kindergarten and our first grade and our second grade, our early years, and what can we do within those grades to really support the kids that may not have had preschool opportunities to really grow those students.
I want to go back to preschool preparedness. So those that didn't have pre-K, 36%, and then pre-K was 50% in the domain piece. So if I am a parent and I have a preschool child and I am not able, like preschool's not in the cards, I have a family caregiver, I'm piecemealing something together. I was there, so I did it.
Yes.
What are the top 2 or 3 things I should be focused on as a parent that I can raise this score? Like, is there an activity I should be looking at? Is it flashcards? Like, what can I do at the dinner table, right?
There's one thing. There's one key thing.
Tell me what it is.
Read 20 minutes a day. That's it.
Got it.
Biggest bang, read 20 minutes a day.
And that can change it. That can change this number.
Absolutely. The other thing is on our KSD website, our early learning page, we have some real practical activities and things beyond that. I certainly believe in reading, but we have some other ideas and activities. And then with our training, we have videos for parents, and we give them the resources to do the activities within the videos. So our parents that can't get into preschool, can't fit within our models, we encourage them to do that. Do that at home. That would make a difference, and then especially the reading.
So I need to go to my local library too. I need to reach out to King County Library System.
Yes, yes. Story time.
Story time, et cetera.
I met with them today to see if they would be interested in attending our preschool fair. So we'll see what their input is.
You know what's great about King County Library? Something they do for our little kids, and I know this because I use it all the time, is they have a calendar that they print, and it's got activities for each day of the month for littles. So like today, you're going to sing a song about, it's very cool.
I'm also going to do a shout out. We have our librarian here at Kent Ridge, and we have a whole, there we go, a whole section.
We have a couple of them.
There we go. We have a whole section of books for our littlest chargers that they can come in and have story time within our library too. So we have a lot of different ways that our community can get involved.
Yeah.
And I bet there's a number of schools that would love to have volunteers just to come and have people read to kids.
Absolutely, yes.
If I may, President Markell, Ready for K is something I'm not sure if you talked about. But if you think about Ready for K, which is a program, it's not just about providing a preschool. Okay, it's what are those things from an early child development perspective that any child, and I'm thinking about parents, what are things that parents can do to prepare their child for K? And it doesn't start at 4 years old. It starts at birth. And I would argue that it's probably before birth that can happen. And can you talk a little bit about Ready for K?
Yeah. So the videos that I've been recording and the resources are based off the Ready K materials. And so there's things from puzzles to questions to ask your kid to get a note card and label your house. So all different kinds of strategies and ways to just increase the different skill sets. So just trying to break them down. If you don't need to go buy some expensive material or things like that, it can be just, we're walking to the store. How many steps are at the store? Walking down the grocery aisle. What letters do we see on this aisle? So lots of different skills that we're trying to build through these videos and materials.
So really partnering with the Ready K resources, but making it more accessible for our parents through the videos, but providing the resources.
I got more. I do want to shout out that the Ready K and the website you guys put together. I checked that out. I got to tell you, as a mother of young children, when I first had my kid, I visited so many childcare sites and went off of the district like Excel document, and there was nothing out there. So this, like, as a young parent, and especially for our community members who are listening, go check this out. There's so many cool resources on this. You guys did a fantastic job. Now, to that end, I want to ask about when we've got kids who are enrolling for kindergarten. I assume there's some sort of readiness test or readiness conference that takes place? Maybe?
Kids. So they have Walk Kids, and so that first initial 3 days, they'll schedule a meeting with parents and just kind of have a conversation. But there's no like door that closes them. There's no exclusion, right? So we take all of them at every readiness. So that first initial conversation is kind of figure out what are my strengths and what are the areas that the child might need additional support in.
So I know in some of our neighboring districts, when kids register for kindergarten, they take what's called a jumpstart test. And if they score at a certain percentage, they're offered the opportunity to do a summer program. Do we offer anything like that here?
We do not currently have anything like that. Some schools offer Jumpstart, yeah.
Yes, we do have, a few of our elementary schools have chosen to do a Jumpstart program for kids that are coming into kindergarten to provide some training in what does kindergarten look like and get kids kindergarten ready. But it's not really an assessment that leads to that.
Okay. So, but having an opportunity to just meet with kids prior to start of school, I think that's so fantastic. Yes. Having that data as a teacher, oh my goodness, it's invaluable. And then offering those extra opportunities, though, for them to catch up. Especially what I'm hearing from I met this really lovely kindergarten teacher from Martin Surtune, just out in the community, one of those run into the grocery store sort of situations. And she was telling me about the social emotional learning of our 25, 26 kindergartners. That's the piece where it sounds like we really need to give some support. So
Absolutely. And Jenny is a wonderful support. We have some support within our building, but we also have Jenny at the district office who goes out to support the kindergarten and the preschool, different programs throughout the district.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you for your thoughtful questions. Thank you. Yeah. Anything else?
I believe that's it.
Thank you,
very
Jean.
much. I also believe that this was one of the topics that was requested. In fact, I got a head nod. That was one of the topics requested by the board when we gave our list of the different items that we would have, and most appropriately fit into a presentation today. So thank you very much, Ms. Curry, for getting that scheduled. Thank you very much for your thoughtful presentation and putting this all together, the mix of the heart, the joy, and then, of course, the data that goes along with it. So we thank you very much for being here today and what you do for our kids.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks again, team.
Our next section is 6.0, our superintendent report. So again, I call upon Superintendent Vela for the superintendent report.
Thank you, President Margell. This evening, I'd like to break my report up into 3 or 4 different areas. The first, as always, some celebrations, chat with you a little bit about some school visits, and actually a couple of visitors that actually came to visit us, I believe, just before the break. I believe it was on the 19th of December. I have some budget information and then some important dates to remind us all about. The first, really, a shout out and a congratulations to our very own Mr. Brian Smith, who is our Director of Athletics and Activity. The North Puget Sound League, MPSL, he was selected as the Athletic Director of the Year. So I wanted to share that in particular in 2025. Brian specifically has been working with MPSL on their league's first student athlete summit. For those of you who've had a chance to visit the athletics and activities area, he has been bringing in leaders from all different schools that really he's created something that now he's sharing with the MPSL, in which we're really very proud of him. And WIAA rightly acknowledged him. January is National Mentoring Month, and as one KSD, we know strong community partnerships make a difference in our students' and families' lives, and you heard about one of them today, and that is Kent Youth and Family Services. They're one of our trusted partners. They've been serving our Kent community for more than 55 years, which is amazing when you think about when they started. We're proud of them and the work that they do, and you heard about the early learning program. They do a number of other things like social, emotional, mental health supports that they also provide. Fun fact, they have served 1,618 youth across 3 after-school program sites, making a meaningful impact for our community. I was able to attend KM High School just before the break for their La Posada. It's a true one KSD event. I want to thank all the staff that was able to attend, in particular, a special thank you to Mr. Robles and all of the KM staff and community that turned out. We had over 450 meals that were served to families. We had great performances from our KM choir, our mariachi band that performed, and Folklorico. And as a highlight, Scenic Hill also provided a presentation and a performance from their choir, which was fantastic. And afterwards, we had a number of the groups help clean up. And so it was a wonderful event, enjoyed by all. In December, I had the opportunity to visit schools. I want to thank President Margell and Vice President Gregory, who joined me to visit schools on the 19th, I believe it was. Is that right? And the key piece there was to thank our office staff. For all of us that work in our schools, our office staff, made up of individuals that support out on a crosswalk and recess, helping in the health room when they need to, in hallways, et cetera. And we delivered chocolates as a thank you. And to see their faces when we thank them for all the hard work, I just want to name off the schools. We attended Mill Creek Middle School. We attended Panther Lake, Glen Ridge, Crestwood Elementary, Matson Middle School, Kentwood High School, Meridian Middle School, Park Orchard Elementary, and Meridian Elementary. And I believe we have some pictures up here to share. You can see, I believe that one is Park Orchard on the top. And then this one was at Meridian Elementary, and they had a wonderful parade on that day at, if you go to the Meridian Elementary. Wanted to give a quick shout out to Mr. Thompson's in his 3rd grade class, had a chance to visit that. And the Grinch, which you see there, is a shout out to Mr. Brad Carlson, husband of Mrs. Shauna Carlson there at Meridian Elementary. It was a lot of fun to be able to visit Meridian Elementary. We had one more box of chocolate, and I wanted to be able to visit our KEA partners, and we did drop off some chocolate over there. And wonderful thing about that is I know that who actually supports the office work over there, Ms. Tiffany Phelps, who was wonderful to chat with her and share some of the treats before the break. And I had Justice, her son, in Meridian Elementary years and years ago that I remember well. So it was a wonderful time, and thank you very much for joining me. This weekend also, I want to thank Director Song and Vice President Gregory for joining me at the LEDGE conference, where we had a chance to collaborate and work with other leaders from around the state in lighting up for going to the Hill on the 27th. It doesn't have to be just on the 27th, but we are planning time to really meet with our representatives and let them know how and what we need in our schools, because the revenues are not keeping up with our expenditures, and we keep pushing that at the state level. So thank you for joining me there. And the special visitors that I had. I want to get them up here on the screen, and you can read that for yourself. And I was just filled with pride when I had a chance to meet two graduates from Kent Meridian High School, class of 2025. They are currently serving in the United States Marine Corps in specialized roles that support critical operations. First is Private Catherine Isabella Weiler Medellin, weather analyst and forecaster in meteorology and oceanography, and Private First Class Ilyane Lo, aviation logistics specialist. These graduates embody our vision of successfully preparing all students for their futures. So I'm just so proud of them. Some of the budget information, I wanted to thank our staff and community who attended our Monday, January 12th budget update meeting at KM at 6 o'clock. I remain committed to transparency and accountability as we continue our budget planning for next year. Thus, at that point, we had held two budget information meetings, both of which were well attended, robust. One of them was online as well. We continue to base budget planning on the best information that we have available to us, and we have communicated that commitment throughout the process. Most recently, State Superintendent Reichdahl presented to us Puget Sound ESD superintendents today and gave us some just-in-time information. So he confirmed, OSBI confirmed, that Title I funding will be fully funded for the 26-27 school year. In addition to that, probably most important, just hot off that press, OSPI has communicated that Title II, III, and IV are expected to have only a 20% combined reduction. Recall that our conversations up until that point, it was completely eliminating 2, 3, and 4. Now, Congress still is working through those pieces, but that's the latest information that we heard today, and I wanted to say that and share that with our board today. This confirmation provides a critical piece of information that will guide and inform our current budget development process and all of our efforts. While this confirmation is helpful, it's important to note that, like many districts across the state, we're still facing those significant financial challenges. And here are some of those factors that contribute to those challenges. First, there's a lack overall of ample funding, as I mentioned earlier. The percentage of education funding in the state of Washington in the operating budget has declined from 52.4% to 43.1% just this current year. To give you an example, 82% of our district's general budgets is dedicated to staff salaries and benefits, yet the state only provides a fraction of what is needed to cover those costs. Ample funding, again, is a foundation for maintaining a high-quality workforce and delivering a high-quality education. There are rising inflations and operational costs, and oftentimes that doesn't mean anything to anybody unless you list them out. So here are some of those to give some examples for our board. Regionally, liability insurance has increased over 100% in the last 5 years. That's for every district, by the way. Utility costs, specifically in Washington State, Residential electricity costs rose approximately 12.6% since last year, according to the Energy Information Administration. Food prices in Seattle region rose 4.4%, according to Consumer Price Index, Seattle area for December 25. And fuel costs have increased. Washington State's current average gas price is about 37% more than the national average, as reported by the Northwest.com last November. We were asked in that community meeting that I mentioned that we had on the 12th, budget information meeting, to provide a comparison to other districts. So I do have some of that statewide. Statewide, Washington Public Schools enrollment has declined for the third consecutive year since the pandemic. Enrollment is down about 4% compared to pre-pandemic levels. I think I mentioned on Monday that statewide, from October to October from last year, over 9,000 student drop. Urban districts were hit the hardest. Largest districts like Seattle, Tacoma, Bellevue, and Kent have seen notable declines. Seattle Public Schools, 3,000 students. Tacoma Public Schools, approximately 1,500 students from pre-pandemic levels. Kent School District, over 1,500 students since 2019, and I've shared before, 792 anomaly for this year. Bellevue School District has declined 1,200 students. State funding is not keeping up with those actual costs that I shared of providing a high-quality education. I ask you to join us again in advocating for increased state funding by contacting your legislatures and urging them to fully fund public education. And once again, the three buckets we've talked about, special education, MSOC, and transportation, in addition to our new focus of tax exemptions, which many businesses get for our large purchases. In addition to that, no unfunded mandates, no new ones, and look at the ones that we currently have and give us, school districts, a reprieve. So those are some of the areas that we are looking at in pushing during this legislative session. By the way, day one was Monday, I believe, and it's a short session, only 60 days. So some upcoming events, just again, on January 20th, we have our Community Connect chat with the superintendent. That is at New Beginnings Fellowship Church at from 6 to 7. On the 21st of January, we have a staff budget information meeting, 1 to 2. That's online. We had one earlier, well attended. I think we're over 600 people on our team site. On Thursday, January 22nd, I invite you once again. I know Director Cook, Director Song, I think President Margell and others have joined me for Pack the Gym at Kent Ridge from 5:30 to 8 p.m. And then on Saturday, January 24th, it's another community-based information meeting on Zoom from 10 to 11. That link will be found on the budget updates on our website. And then finally, Thursday, February 5th, Kentwood Pack the Gym, a really special one this time. It's special because the Special Olympics banner will be presented to them. They just received, that's at 5:30 8 p.m. School was named a National Banner School by Special Olympics for its outstanding unified program. And that concludes my report. Thank you.
Thank you, Superintendent Vela. Our next section is our legislative update. I'm going to announce that this is the time to get in your comment cards, if you'd like to get those into the blue box over in front of Ms. Sisley. And otherwise, I will hand it over to Director Song for our legislative update.
Thank you. Again, the superintendent mentioned a couple things that were on my notes. And so for this week, I just wanted to give a brief general update and overview because, one, it's a new role for me, so I'm also learning, but I thought I could share some of the foundational information that might help set the framework for understanding the information that will be forthcoming in our future board meetings as our legislative session updates become a little bit more robust. So a couple things on my note is one, what is a legislative session? So just briefly, a legislative session is the period each year when state lawmakers meet to write, debate, amend, and pass laws. Because Washington works on a biennium, Superintendent Vela mentioned we are in our 60-day period. Our odd number years have our 105-day sessions. These are the sessions where the legislators will meet to set the new budget for the next 2 years. And then the even number years, like this year, are 60-day sessions where it's typically aimed at making budget amendments and adjustments. And so another brief rundown of what the trajectory of the pathway looks like is first we'll start with opening day, which was January 12th. And then the next step will be the committee will get to work. This is where bills get to public hearings, amendments and edits will start to occur. This is also the period where many of the bills die. I believe at the legislative conference, we were told there's roughly between 300 to 400 different bills that overlap or include the priorities that are stated within WASDA, within our board, and then within the education community on what we would like to focus on. After that, we have cutoff deadlines. This is where things need to be submitted before they're able to move forward. If you do not meet the cutoff deadlines, then your bill will for sure die in this phase. Afterwards, it goes to the floor to vote, then it goes to negotiations, then budget passages, and then adjournments of the session. Some highlights. One is we are going to be talking a little bit more on the need for progressive tax revenues and progressive revenue options. Some education advocates that we've been working with alongside our legislators have been in conversations about pushing for new revenue solutions to support education funding rather than relying primarily on our traditional revenue streams like bonds and levies. There are also a handful of bills that I'll just kind of share. These are in no particular order, but just for the public's interest. We are covering things like Senate Bill 5574, which targets the Asian, Black, and Latino histories in schools, SB 5872, Early Childhood Education and Assistance Programs, or the ECAP, and how we're going to fund those, all the way through 5849, which is Financial Education Graduation Requirements. And so these are some examples of bills that are going to be presented, in addition to us trying to fight for and retaining as much funding as possible, which again include those buckets that we've outlined with MSOC and special education being at the forefront. But that is my board report for this week. Hopefully this recap was helpful. And then starting next week, Superintendent Vela and I will start to include additional details as we get more information from our conversations and meetings with legislators and other educational advocates.
Thank you very much, Director Song. And thank you for the participation of our directors in the legislative meeting this weekend. Our next section is section 8.0, and it's for discussion and approval. Is there a motion on the floor?
I move to approve 8.01 through 8.07.
Could we do, is this
Want to do
one,
them
can we do these
separate?
ones? Yep.
Separate? All right. I make a motion to approve 8.01.
Second.
A motion's been made and seconded for approval of item 8.01, gifts, donations, and/or memorials acceptance. We are now open for discussion. Director Cook, would you like to take this one this week?
Yeah, I would. Let me pull it up real quick. Put it over here somewhere. There it is. All right. So altogether, this period of time, we have roughly $10,000 worth of cash donations that have been donated to the district in different capacities. Kent Ridge High School received a euphonium instrument. Man, I haven't seen one of those in a long time. And that was through donor Ryan Hersey, and that was $1,000. We also received through the support the Kent Ridge athletics programming and activities. Huddle Tickets LLC provided that for $787.50. And then to support Kent Ridge boys basketball program trip to San Diego, the Kent Ridge that must mean backboard club, but it's spelled differently. And that was $7,218. Cedar Valley Elementary School had some donations for supporting ASB activities from McDonald's Corporation of $853.49. Matson Middle School received some money for the cheer team competition fees, equipment, uniforms, and supplies through Double Good, and that was $1,220. So I just want to say thank you to all of our donors. Please keep giving money. It really helps us to be able to provide the things that we may not be able to get otherwise. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Seeing no further discussion, a motion's been made and seconded for approval of item 8.01, gifts, donations, and/or memorials acceptance. All those in favor, please raise your right hand and say aye.
Aye. Aye.
The motion passes 5-0. Is there a motion on the floor?
I move to approve 8.02, third reading and approval of Policy 2020, course design, selection, and adoption of instructional materials.
Second.
A motion's been made and seconded. We are now open for discussion. Seeing as there is none, a motion's been made and seconded for approval of item 8.02, third reading and approval of Policy 2020, course design, selection, and adoption of instructional materials. All those in favor, please raise your right hand and say aye.
Aye. Aye.
The motion passes 5-0. Is there a motion on the floor?
I move to approve 8.03, second reading and approval of Policy 3143, notification and dissemination of information about student offenses and notification of threats of violence or harm.
Second.
A motion's been made and seconded for approval of item 8.03, second reading and approval of Policy 3143, notification and dissemination of information about student offenses and notification of threats of violence or harm. We are now open for discussion.
I did have a question on this one. It looks like in reviewing the information from the procedure updates that we have, there's an additional piece that we didn't have before, but we do now. It looks like the district discipline matrix, which is new. I was wondering if the district would be able to explain why we're using this new part of our procedure and kind of what led to it, if possible.
Ms. Hawley, I think I'm going to have Ms. Hawley come on up.
And this is 3241F1 is the one that I'm speaking
So
about.
it's a different policy. We haven't gotten to that yet.
Yep.
It's under student discipline.
Yes, but 3241 is part of student discipline, is it not?
Yeah, we're on 3143 right now.
3143.
Oh, I read it wrong. Okay, that's fine. We can go back to it in a little bit.
Upcoming question.
Seeing no further discussion, the motion's been made and seconded for approval of item 8.03, second reading and approval of Policy 3143, notification and dissemination of information about student offenses and notification of threats of violence or harm. All those in favor, please raise your right hand and say aye.
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 The motion passes 5-0. Is there a motion on the floor?
Move to approve 8.04, second reading and approval of Policy 3241, student no.
Could we do
3210, thank you. Non-discrimination. I got ahead of myself.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded for approval of item 8.04, second reading and approval of Policy 3210, non-discrimination. We're now open for discussion. Seeing that there's no further discussion, a motion's been made and seconded for approval of item 8.04, second reading and approval of Policy 3210, non-discrimination. All those in favor, please raise your right hand and say aye.
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 The motion passes 5-0. Is there a motion on the floor?
I move to approve 8.05, second reading and approval of Policy 3241, student discipline.
Second.
A motion's been made and seconded for approval of item 8.05, second reading and approval of Policy 3241, student discipline. We're now open for discussion.
Okay, so now I have that same question. Just want to know kind of what led to this new change in how we're working.
I'd like to call up Mr. Jim Shield.
Thank you.
Good evening, President Margell, members of the board. If you'll recall, during our work session on this, we mentioned that there were some resources, a couple of things, some resources and documents that we used behind the scenes that weren't part of our public policy and procedure. And we felt that that put students and families at a disadvantage in terms of advocating and meeting their due process rights. So WASDA came out with the new kind of the matrix. We edited that pretty heavily. And the reason is if you look at the procedure, you'll see that there's a lot of definitions that are all buried in footnotes. And that those footnotes then say, this is a violation if the student violated RCW block, right? It has all these legal quotes. And that's not user-friendly for anybody, for either the student, the administrator who's trying to administer the discipline, right? Trying to decide a parent, trying to look at it if they're thinking about an appeal, and trying to decide is what the school said happened, does that meet this definition? So the purpose of the matrix is to have some much more clear, easily understood definitions of each of the different behavioral violations. And then laying out which of those is eligible. You know, some of those are you can't suspend a student for certain violations, and some you can. So trying to make it more clear and readily accessible, and deliberately we deliberately chose to have the matrix be a separate document rather than like embedding it. The procedure references it, but we wanted it a separate document because it just makes it easier to deal with than if it's like embedded in the middle of what's already a very, very long procedure.
Yeah, I think it was a great idea to do that. It's really helpful for, I think, parents to be able to kind of see what it is that we're using when we make decisions. I'm sorry.
No, I just want to make sure I heard you correctly. So the first reading that we had already done in the work session, that doesn't change anything or any of the asks that we had. This just is additional resources that are kind of added as an extra explanation that maybe makes it more visual.
Yeah, so at the work session, a lot of the questions were things that got into procedure, right?
Yeah.
And so we talked about, when you see the procedure, you will see we have a chart that breaks this down a little bit more clearly, and now that we're at that point, you're seeing that chart.
Yep, okay, thank you.
And I'm just curious, what amount of work went into this? Like, how many people were involved? How long did it take?
Yeah, I don't have the list of how many. I would say we had at least 15 or 20 building administrators and others. We spent a couple of days in the summer working on the definitions. It was a pretty time-consuming process because we're going to these footnotes that WASDA created and then having to pull up that law and having to read the law and figure out what that means. Also making quite a few changes. So they, for example, they got rid of a lot of categories and just called it violence. And we said, well, that's not helpful, right? Like, is it an assault? Is it a fight? Is it you push someone down on the playground? Like, those are very, very different things and shouldn't be all lumped into one giant category. We do still have some work going forward. The procedure references community groups and things like that to further develop. And so those will be something that will start after, assuming this is approved, that's something we'll start next to take that next step to sort of clean up the procedures that are there.
That's good. The last thing that I wanted to bring up is, obviously we've been discussing this for a bit of time, and you've been working on this for even longer. But I wanted kind of to let our community know that this is not all-inclusive, right? If there are needs that go outside of this, that can happen, and there should be justification, but there is the ability for us to take each individual case and make a determination with that student and that situation in mind. And the reason that we have that, and we discussed it during our work session, is there's a lot of nuance in anything that happens with students, any type of violence or any type of disciplinary action. And I think it's really important that even though this gives us a good template of where we can go and how we can start that process, that doesn't mean that every single time this is what you should look to. It just gives you an idea of where we're starting from. And then beyond that, the administrator has leeway to take into account extenuating circumstances and such.
Correct. And I really appreciate you saying that, because the law, the WACS, the RCW requires that building administrators use their judgment in taking into account the unique circumstances. So the only thing you see in the law where there's a mandatory consequence is an actual firearm requires a 365-day expulsion or long-term suspension from a school. So this says I could conceivably long-term suspend a student for something, or short-term, or in school. Doesn't mean I have to. I could go below that. And there may be extenuating circumstances where I choose to go above those guidelines if I can justify that decision. And then students have their due process rights to pursue appeals and things like that to have those decisions reviewed.
Of course. Thank you very much for all that information. I appreciate it.
I think this is the longest procedure we have in the school district.
Yeah.
It's like
It is
36
pretty long.
pages. I mean, it's super
I also
long.
wanted to thank Director Cook for bringing that up. And for the reason is at WASDA in November, is that right? It seems like yesterday. November, that was the highest attended, I think, President Margell, did you attend the legal portion of it, which a huge section of it was exactly this. So to Mr. Shields' point, it is the longest one. And one of the things that we learned as a board superintendent governance team is to stay abreast of what's happening in the law to make sure that our policies are being updated and our procedures are aligned. So I wanted to thank both the question and Mr. Shield and to our team that worked with you. Thank you.
And I do also want to echo Director Cook. I want to say thank you for publishing it. Oftentimes, I had the opportunity to meet with many different school districts this last weekend, and they're like, "You're publishing that?" And I'm like, "Why wouldn't you publish it?" Like transparency and being authentic and making sure people understand, but also giving them a guide. This is what you can appeal. This is how you can do it, and it's in plain language. So I think other school districts are going to be looking at us and saying, maybe we should do that. So I really appreciate the work.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Seeing no further comments, a motion's on the floor and has been seconded for approval of item 8.05, second reading and approval of policy 3241, student discipline. All those in favor, please raise your right hand and say aye.
Aye. Aye.
The motion passes 5-0. Is our motion on the floor?
I move to approve item 8.06, second reading and approval of policy 5006, certification revocation.
Second.
A motion's been made and seconded for approval of item 8.06, second reading and approval of policy 5006, certification revocation. We are now open for discussion. Seeing that there is no further discussion, a motion's been made and seconded for approval of item 8.06, second reading and approval of policy 5006, certification revocation. All those in favor, please raise your right hand and say aye.
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 The motion passes 5-0. Is there a motion on the floor?
I move to approve item 8.07, second reading and approval of policy 5012, parental, family, or marital status and pregnancy or related conditions of staff.
Second.
A motion's been made and seconded for approval of item 8.07, second reading and approval of policy 5012, parental, family, or marital status and pregnancy or related conditions of staff. We are now open for discussion.
This isn't related. Oh, go ahead.
No, you go right ahead.
This isn't related directly to this. I just wanted to thank Pam for going through and making sure that we have the red line on all of these. I know that was something that I had brought up. I don't know if other board members had discussed it as well, but it's so important for me because it makes it so much easier for me to go in and look at this and see what changes have been made, and we can then discuss why, right? And that makes it so much simpler, and I just wanted to say thank you for that.
I have a question about this policy. The policy reads, pregnancy or related conditions include pregnancy, childbirth, termination of pregnancy or lactation, medical conditions related to the above, including infertility treatment, or recovery from the above. I want it clear, is termination of pregnancy include pregnancy loss, or is it specifically termination of pregnancy? Are those two separate things? Are those two separate language pieces? Or are we considering them as the same?
Speaking from a medical perspective, they are considered the same. So I don't know if we need to change the language on that to do that, but yeah, from a medical perspective, they are considered the same.
I just wanted to make sure it was really, really clear to our educators, our employees, and especially in a women heavily dominated occupation, pregnancy loss and termination of pregnancy, from a layman's standpoint, both of them are absolutely impactful to the workplace. And I think it's really important and really admirable that there is a policy that recognizes that people need to take a step back and have that space to digest what they have just gone through. And so regardless of if it's pregnancy loss or chosen termination or whatever it is, that is a hard thing. And I am really glad that we have a policy about this, and I wanted to make sure that both of those types of things were included in this policy. So thank you.
I have a comment on this one. I'm really glad that you brought this forward. That had not crossed my mind. And I think this is an active, real example of why representation from communities matter. Could we actually add that language and include it in there? Because again, when it comes to equity and looking at things from a systemic lens, I think having that formally written in there could go a long way. Regardless if it sounds redundant, I think from a place of principle, to me, I would like to see that language written in there for that clarity.
The one thing I would say about this one is, one, usually there's legal language that's usually around this, one. And two, there might be some reasons that we would not want to separate them, and that termination is termination, and that we don't need to point out what the reasoning is necessarily for somebody. And so it might be something that we want to think about some sensitivity around that.
Absolutely.
Should we send it back then, just to have it legally reviewed, make sure that the language is, did we pull it from WASDA, or is it language that we need to add? It's, having experienced this, I know that the language is the same. So I know 100% that legally and medically, they are the same thing.
I also have had that experience, and I can tell you that in that moment of panic, if I read this policy, I would assume that I was expected back at work the next day.
Right.
And so that's why I'm wondering, do we need to have the clarification?
Right.
And just as a reminder to the board, this is your policy, and as you know, second reading you can entirely go back for a third so that my team could do what was just stated by Vice President Gregory. And so just a reminder to the board.
What I could suggest on this one is,
just so we can have more time to discuss this.
yep. What I'm going to suggest on this one, because we have a motion that's been made and seconded, and so right now we're in discussion, our suggestion is to vote it down.
Yep.
And so what that would mean is then it would go back for a further reading, and then we could bring this back in. But since the motion's been made and seconded, to clear this out most consistently, that would be the best option.
Yep. I'm okay with that.
I'm good.
Is there any further discussion? Seeing no further discussion, a motion's been made and seconded for approval of item number 8.07, second reading and approval of policy 5012, parental, family, or marital status and pregnancy or related conditions of staff. All those in favor, please raise your right hand and say aye.
Aye.
All those against?
Sorry, I must have missed something.
We're going to add language to it. We're going to
Okay.
add language
Well,
to
then
it.
never mind, I was just kidding.
He was just kidding.
I withdraw my vote.
He withdraws his vote.
Would the board be okay if we started the vote again?
Yes, please. Please withdraw his vote. He never voted.
Okay. A motion's been made and seconded for approval of item 8.07, second reading and approval of policy 5012, parental, family, or marital status and pregnancy or related conditions of staff. All those in favor, please raise your right hand and say aye. All those against, please raise your right hand and say nay.
Nay.
The motion fails 0-5.
That's what I get for going to the bathroom.
Sorry about that. We are now to our agenda item 9.0, the consent agenda. Is there a motion on the floor? Or sorry, is there anybody who would like to pull an item?
I'd like to pull 9.12.
Any other items? Is there a motion on the floor?
I move to approve our consent agenda items 9.01 through 9.13, accepting 9.12 vouchers.
Second.
A motion's been made and seconded for approval of the consent agenda items 9.01 through 9.13 inclusive, excluding 9.12 vouchers. We are now open for discussion. Seeing as there is none, a motion's been made and seconded for approval of consent agenda items 9.01 through 9.13 inclusive, with exclusion of 9.12 vouchers. All those in favor, please raise your right hand and say aye.
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 The motion passes 5-0. Is there a motion on the floor?
I move to approve item 9.12 vouchers.
Second?
A motion's been made and seconded. We are now open for discussion.
So the reason that I wanted to pull this is I've had some questions regarding our vouchers over the past, honestly, a couple of years. And so in the past, I've asked if I could, vote it down independently. And I don't know why I'd never thought of doing it this way, just pulling it out and then voting no on it myself separately. Right now, there are some things that I'm contemplating that that leads me to not want to pass this myself. I'm not ready to talk about them yet because there's some extenuating circumstances that require some more thought on my part before I make comments on it. But I wanted to say just that that's my reasoning for pulling it, and why I'm voting it down is that I don't feel comfortable voting it forward.
Can you share just very vaguely why you would not want to move this forward?
There are some items that are in here that are discussed in executive session that I cannot discuss out here. So that's the reasoning behind it. Hopefully that's enough.
Okay.
Okay.
Seeing that there's no further discussion, a motion's been made and seconded for approval of item 9.12 vouchers. All those in favor, please raise your right hand and say aye.
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 Sorry. No.
Okay, the motion passes 5-0.
Yeah. Nay.
Oh, sorry, I saw your
That's
hand
okay.
up for aye.
Yeah, no. I meant to say no.
Okay, so,
I just didn't say anything. I raised my hand, but I didn't say anything. Sorry.
okay. I feel like that there was, I'm not
confusion.
quite exactly clear on this one, so could we re-vote this one? Are we
Thank you.
okay with this one?
I appreciate that.
Okay. A motion's been made and seconded for approval of item 9.12 vouchers. All those in favor, please raise your right hand and say aye.
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 All those against?
Nay.
The motion passes 4-1. Our informational items are included in there. I would continue to show that we have our financial statement and anything, we've been including that in our informational. We've had our presentations on that one. So please read your informational items.
I do have a question, as I did read them. I saw that 1620p is in here. We didn't discuss 1620p. There's actually 4 different items here for procedures that we didn't discuss this evening but are being changed. I just wanted to get an idea of why we're making those changes. It's 1620, 2161, 2410, and 3207. 1620, the last time that we discussed this, I had brought up the fact that, or I had asked the superintendent if the WASDA language was used to create hours and if it was exactly the same. And he had said yes, but it didn't match, and it still does not match what the WASDA language states. And I just wanted to, I didn't get an explanation as to why why it was changed.
I'll bring Ms. Holly up. Ms. Holly?
I think we mentioned at that meeting, WASDA language talked about the principals being notified with people coming into the building, but our board protocol is, it will go through the superintendent. So that was the only real change on that. We did mention also in there about following board protocol guidelines. And my impression was the board wanted it changed to read official communication. That was in the first line of the first paragraph. Because there was a question about, well, we communicate with principals all the time, but we read now formal communication. So those were the changes in there. It basically matched WASDA's policy procedure exactly, other than who the communication goes through, which in our district's case, because of board protocol, it's the superintendent.
Okay. My only concern with that is that, you know, I've got, like many of us here, have children in the district. I volunteer quite a bit. In that case, do I need to be running that by the superintendent every time I visit my kid's school? Or if I go to volunteer at my wife's school to help out with their classroom or something like that? Because that's what it seems like to me on here, because the wording on it states, individual board members interested in visiting schools or classrooms will make arrangements for visitations through the superintendent's office per the board's protocol guidelines. There's no, like, outside of that rule, so to say, and I don't know, that feels a little constraining, and I don't know is everyone else doing that right now? Like when you if you go and volunteer with your kids, or?
I think that there's a difference for me and what I'm doing, and where I definitely put my lines as being both a parent and then also school board member. So when I go and serve on Thursday night the football team dinner, and I'm scooping food onto kids' plates and just talking with other parents about the football game and those type of things, and I am acting in the capacity of, and my conversations are those around being a parent, then no, I don't arrange those through the district. When I'm picking up my kid from being sick, nope, don't call the district. I come and pick up my sick kid. Now, if I'm going to go and speak to anybody, listen, whatever that is in the capacity as a board member, and really have that hat on, then I will arrange that through the school district.
I want to back Donald up here, though, in that we just had that board retreat where Sandy talked about you don't ever get to take the crown off.
No, you don't, but you do have an opportunity of saying, hey, today I'm just scooping mac and cheese. And so, but that's a really great conversation. Let's schedule another time, and let me schedule that through the district. And so you can set those boundaries. And just like I would say, if somebody tried to come to me and like communicate like my personal device and saying, you know, hey, you know, I want to talk about board stuff. Hey, I can't do that through this. You know, that's all done through the district. And so you just shut it down and say this is where I need to have that happen through. And so you can't control what somebody says to you right at first, but you can as soon as you hear it, like, ooh, this is going to not a scooping mac and cheese conversation, or I'm reading to kindergartners conversation, to I am being either inquired on or having a conversation on as a board director, then I will want to transition that and make sure that I have an appropriate meeting and time that's set up through the superintendent. Does that feel appropriate?
I think it
because
does.
we want you to volunteer in classrooms.
I just feel like we should include that language if we're going to be explaining exactly what we want everyone to do. Like, volunteering should be included in here somehow, and it's really just not. And I mean, obviously we didn't even have this previously. There was no 1620p up until this point, and we somehow made it through. But it's just when we start implementing policies and procedures, but then we go outside of what those policies and procedures say, it leads to for me to confusion, because at what point do I say, okay, well, if I'm in the building and a PTA president of that school happens to talk to me about something, and they ask about something that's going on here, right? And it would be rather rude to just be like, no, like, and I mean, like, but I also know that that's not something necessarily that should be discussed there, and there is some nuance to it. It just feels like, this setting it up this way just can lead to more questions than it answers, I think.
Can I make a suggestion?
Sure.
On the policy where it says visits to schools, individual board members interested in visiting schools or classrooms will, scroll down, please. Will make arrangements, thank you, for visitations through the superintendent's office per board through the board's protocol guidelines. That line right there, instead of when it says visiting schools or classrooms, in their capacity as board members, if we specify that you are intending to go to a school or a classroom as a board member, would that satisfy like the clarification?
But I wonder what's the point of the rest of it then, because that's what it talks about. The last sentence says official visits by board members will be implemented only under board authorization and with full knowledge of staff, including the superintendent, principals, and other supervisors.
Yeah, it's
So-
just saying they know you're coming.
I can tell you, as an educator, every time an adult walks into my room, the instinct is to think this is an evaluation. I am being judged right now. For example, my school tomorrow is doing equity walks, and we had to send out multiple emails saying, this is not an evaluation. We're
Yeah.
just coming around to see. So I think that's why this is there. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. It's not meant to confuse anybody. I think the conversation the board is having is a good one. You bring up a good point, both of you. However, a simple communication is all it is, so.
I think for me personally, and I know I have done this for me, I let the superintendent know, this is just my practice. So I volunteer for my girls' projects and everything, and I'm gonna be and then I just made a habit of just letting Naomi know, hey, I'm gonna be at this school and I'm there for this reason. Not to get permission, but just as a heads up, so it's kind of tracked that I drove kids to the Model UN last year, and people knew I did that. I mean, I have the authorization to do it. So as a practice for myself, if I'm volunteering, I just put that onto the calendar so they know that, oh, I was at that thing I was volunteering that day. That's just been my protocol that I did for myself. I thought the language of official visits by board members is where it covered that paragraph. I took that to be, if I'm going as an official capacity, that should be known. If I'm going to volunteer, the teacher, the coach, whoever I'm volunteering with knows that I'm coming. Versus letting the whole building know. And parking, do not park in the principal's parking spot. I'm just letting everybody know that. Do not do that. I will tow your car, okay? That's rude. I'm sorry. That just came up because it happened.
Staff lots in general are sacred.
Yeah.
Just saying.
Don't be parking in if it says and you're not that person, don't park in that lot. Okay. Sorry, side note.
Yeah.
And I think official does call it out there,
Yeah.
official visits.
It's
Yeah.
official visit, but I am okay also adding language. If you feel that's needed, I'm good with adding language too.
Yeah, I guess
I read it that way.
I guess the reason that I bring it up is at some point I had mentioned that I was going to stop by at a school. I'm not going to name names because I don't want to
That
highlight
doesn't
them
matter.
in
It's
particular,
irrelevant.
yeah. But the principal at the time said, oh, well, make sure to schedule that with my secretary, or not secretary, administrative assistant in our building to make sure that it's scheduled through the superintendent and everything. And I was like, I was just going to come in and, volunteer giving food or something, donating food into the building. But it's like, I am in the building and I don't want to say, no, you're wrong.
Right.
I want to still follow that, but it's like, I felt like I couldn't. I figured out a way to do it anyway, obviously. But it was an issue for me in that respect. And it's like, and maybe that's just something that the communication to the staff hasn't happened yet on this, maybe? I don't know.
Yeah, if it's an official, if you're visiting, and I think Sandy told us this too, if you're go in pairs, and best practice is to go in pairs and to make it arranged, so people know that you're showing up and there's no surprises. Don't ever surprise a building administrator.
So from hearing all the discussion, it sounds like there's just a lot of subjective anecdotes of what is my practice. And I think what everybody is sharing is all true. But where the confusion is, where I see Director Cook coming from, is the language in the beginning does create some level of ambiguity. Because if it's stated separately there and then it mentions official board capacity in a later section, it can come across as if it's its own independent statement. And within that phrase, it says nothing about what capacity you're presenting yourself as. And so is that what I'm hearing, Director Cook? That first paragraph really
Yeah.
contradicts and conflicts with what is best practice?
I think it's all in the same paragraph, though.
It's the same paragraph, it's just the beginning sentence or two.
Well, yeah.
And the reason that's exactly right. And the reason I say that is because it doesn't give you an out ahead of time. Like, it's every piece says you need to be working through the superintendent's office. Like, there's no part in any of this that says you can go outside of that. And I'm not saying we want to open it up entirely, just maybe an acknowledgement of some sort that, in volunteering capacities, maybe we, there's some, I don't know how to word it, but.
So,
Sorry, go ahead.
no, a great conversation. Again, not intended to confuse. It's the piece about letting anyone know, whether it be a teacher or whatever, is courtesy. I think I shared in one of our work sessions that schools are busy places, offices. There are things that happen that you didn't know were going to happen. And so letting people know ahead of time is really the courtesy piece. Through my office is what we do, because we set your times up, and we've done that. Again, I'll reiterate that. The other piece that I'll get to is that I believe Ms. Hayes mentioned, it's hard to take your board hat off. And as Director Williams said, well, if I'm in a classroom, PE, wherever it is, it's hard to take your hat off. Part of this is really to help support our board in making sure they know that, and better than that, let's pick out that time. Hey, I want to volunteer at whatever, we can help you with that. There are a lot of things that happen from a volunteer perspective where you can volunteer as a board member. Fill the bus, as you might recall. Anyway, it's all courtesy. Now, here's what I will say. It is a procedure. I'll take into consideration all these comments, conversations, work with President Margell on this. But again, this is really meant to protect our board, also be courteous to our buildings and our teachers and staff that are in the buildings.
My only other concern was in section A, where it talks about formal communications. If a teacher wanted to talk to the board about, say, like legislative priorities, like obviously, like say they're like many of our teachers happen to live also in within district boundary, right? We are their elected official, so like would that be considered formal communication? Because it is definitely something that they're like if they're advocating for a particular thing for us to do or to get out into the legislature and push for this or that, whichever it is. That it feels like that would be formal communications, but would it apply in this situation? And if that's the case, then
I don't think it applies, because the statement even says, all form of communication on report or reports to the board from principals, supervisors, teachers, or other staff members will be submitted through the superintendent's office. So no, if it's a public person, if they are a voting member of the public and they stop me at Fred Meyer and I have to put my milk back, that is a different conversation.
Even if they are a teacher or
Even
an
if there
employee
are
of
a teacher or
district.
whatever, they've approached me as I represent their district. They come up to me and, hey, I heard about this, or can you explain that? Or tell me about the budget model, or whatever it is. I mean, it can happen and they contact you directly.
yeah. But I mean, that's where I feel like it's a little confusing, because obviously that's something that is formal in a way. Like if they're discussing something that is,
I think it's kind of
like
the
they're
definition
wanting
of
to-
informal.
Yeah, I think it's
Well,
more
I'm-
informal.
But see, I would take informal as like, we're talking about sports, or we're talking about how our kids are doing in school, or something along those lines. And if they're talking about legislative priorities, to me, that's pretty formal.
I mean,
But
you and I both participate in our local LD,
Yeah.
and I anticipate when I attend, I'm gonna get asked questions about
Yeah.
what's happening at the Kent School District.
Yeah.
I'm there as a member of that LD, I'm not there in my official capacity unless they ask me formally, and then in that case, I'm gonna go to Megan and Superintendent Villa and ask, hey, how would you like me to handle this? if I'm just there and it's a teacher in the district or an employee of the district, but they're there as a member of that LD, they're wearing that hat in that moment. They're not an employee. This to me reads, I get an email or a phone call or a text message from an employee of the district asking me very specific questions. That's, I'm gonna forward that on to Superintendent Bella.
I see. And that makes sense.
And I think we've done that, I think you've also done that very well, when we've gotten an email that's come in and we're like, we cannot do anything for that. But we want it to have attention, so we forward it over. I mean, I've done this, I know you have done this. We forward it over and say, I have received this information. Please respond on behalf of the district, because there are things that we can't get into, it's not our job to do. It's kind of overlines that.
I just wouldn't want to chill like our teachers from contacting us. Like, and I guess the reason that I say that is, so I actually had an incident of this where a staff member brought up a safety issue that was happening. And obviously that's something that we want to hear about, right? If there's something safety related, we want to know about it. But like, I can't tell them, no, go and talk to this person. If it's something that's pressing, I need to try and get it handled right away. But this feels like that might stymie that, and maybe it won't. Maybe I'm thinking too much into
I
it.
think the difference is you can be that conduit, right?
Right.
Of getting that information on, and I think that's encouraged, exactly. But what's saying is like, when it comes back out and say, here's our policy of how we're going to, as a board and as an administration, deal with the safety concern of whatever it is, that's going to come through the superintendent.
And I will say, you've done a great job, Director Cook, in a couple of safety where you've shared them with me. And that's really the way we should work together as a board superintendent governance team.
I think this happened to me last spring. I got approached and they were very direct about what they wanted, and I'm not going to give any details because that will give it away. But my redirection for them is, have you done this? Did you contact the principal? Do you need their information? Let me go get that for you. Here it is. Did you contact this person? Have you done this? And then I also did a follow-up. My other follow-up was I went back and said, hey, this person came to me, they have this problem. Can someone, I'm warm handing them off to make sure it was, and it was handled. But I think sometimes they'll just approach us, and this happens in all capacities, but they'll approach you going, they want you to fix it, and I want to fix it because I'm a fixer. But I think I always go back, what have you done before you came to me? And then I go back and go, well, you haven't done all the steps yet. Let's go back and work the system and then follow up with them. Did this get resolved? And in 9 out of 10 times, it's been resolved. So I think that warm handoff to the district is our responsibility.
Yeah. Well, and I like.
So
and
I
oh, go ahead.
love all of our short stories. Where are we going with this?
So my only question on that is like, because this particular item here isn't really directed at board directors. It's like, this is prescriptive to staff.
Yes.
And that's where I was more going along with. It's not that I'm not so much worried about whether I can handle sending them one way or the other. I just don't want staff to feel like they can't talk to us, and because we will send them to the right place, hopefully.
Yeah, I can
or at least get them in
100%
the right
assure you
direction.
that we get a good amount of communication from our staff, which is welcome.
And this
wonderful.
wouldn't lead to like any sort of disciplinary action if they didn't follow this, right? I mean,
We'll just redirect them to who is the most appropriate to be able to solve their issue, just like we do with any of our community.
yeah, that
Yep.
sounds fine. I appreciate it. Thank you for the discussion.
Perfect.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Holly.
Now we move on to section 11.0, final communication from the audience. I believe that all of them were handled during
Yep,
the first
they were all
half.
handled.
And it's informational only, there's no
It's
voting.
Yeah, we don't have to, unless you want to discuss it.
Nope.
Okay.
So we move on to 11.02, board reports, Director Cook.
Oh, sorry. All right, pull up my notes. Okay, so there's been something that came out recently through a community member's public records request, where they ended up getting information that indicated that our president here was not providing information directly to us about changes that were happening that were material to how our meetings are run. and length of times for, presentations and stuff of that sort. That was the exact kind of worry that I had when I brought it up. And I brought it up a few times in that I felt like I wasn't being brought in on things that were changing. And to me, it feels like the board should be deciding whether or not we have 10 minutes or 15 minutes or 25 minutes, however long we want for presentations, how many slides we want for presentations. And those types of things are important to me that the board comes to a decision on that. And even though we do vote to have a president to do some of the administrative tasks that need to get done, that feels like it's beyond that. And so the reason I bring this up is because I've submitted a request to the superintendent for basically all emails from or to board members in the district, as well as any emails to the executive staff in the superintendent's office. And this is part of my, commitment to try and make sure that I'm holding things accountable, holding ourselves accountable, to make sure that we aren't doing things that would hinder our ability to do our elected duties. And so I've requested that through Superintendent Bell. I've also submitted a parallel public records request, as I've had some issues getting information in the past. And so I just wanted to, which I'm hoping is unnecessary, but I just wanted to kind of point that out. I will be waiting for it. Hopefully I'll get it relatively soon. I don't know how much I'll be able to share. Of course, I'll have to discuss it with our legal team and whatnot. But I just wanted to call that out because I think it's important that, anytime we make decisions on how we do things here, it should be a decision of our board. It shouldn't be a decision made up by a single person or even a couple of people. The whole board should be involved when we're making changes to how we get information. And so that's why I'm going down that road. I would prefer not to, but as far as that goes, I do feel like it's my duty to make sure that things that are happening here, I don't just ignore and see something happening and not do something about it if I think there might be something to it. And there's a very real possibility that I look through it and everything's fine. And I hope that that's the case. But I just wanted to point it out to the public so that you're aware that that is something I'm working on right now. And I will continue to try and hold our board accountable for the things that we choose to do and why we do it and when we do it. And so hopefully that will, point out nothing, but we'll see what ends up coming of it. Outside of that, I don't really have anything else to add to the board report today. Thank you.
Director Williams.
Well, firstly, I want to give a shout out to our KEA members who have stuck with us this whole time. My understanding is we have members from Kent Meridian, Top, Meadow Ridge, Park Orchard, and Sunrise. If I have missed anyone, I apologize. I am so grateful to see a sister union here. I know we're not members of the same union, but I really, really appreciate our EAs. And that goes for all of our labor partners. I wanted to share that in my first month as a board director, I've been really focused on learning our district systems, building relationships within the district, and listening carefully to our community members. I've spent a lot of time just beginning to do deep dives into our budget and fiscal data. And through that, I have learned what has been really obvious. Our enrollment is down. And questions, and that directly impacts how much money we have in this district in order to fund our programs. I have questions around our demographic data. I want to learn more about that, about the students that are choosing to leave. Looking at how can we trim, because we have costs that are increasing, how can we trim but keeping cuts away from students? I want to acknowledge someone who is dearly missed in this boardroom. It's someone who I only got to interact with a few times, but Dave Buzzard was an incredible, incredible force in this district. In my last conversation with him, he said to me shortly after I was sworn in, there are two pieces to this district. There are student-facing and non-student-facing. And as the director of operations, that was his job, was the non-student-facing. And he said to me, the purpose of non-student-facing is to support all the student facing. And I just thought that was such a powerful way to think about things, because at the end of the day, it is about the students. It is about this community. And I deeply, deeply miss Mr. Buzzard. Yes. To wrap up, I just appreciate the patience and support of my colleagues here at the dais. I know that I routinely put my foot in my mouth, and I just am so appreciative of you guys, of being patient with me and helping me learn in this role. So thank you. That's my report.
Thank you, Director Williams. Director Song.
Yeah, I want to thank, first off, the presentation that we had today. It's really great when we're able to have this level of communication and relationship with our administrative team and also our school teams, so that we can all continuously learn and grow together and understanding what are those integral parts about our district that makes us who we are, but then also learning about the areas where we can provide additional supports. So I just wanted to give a highlight and a shout out to that, because I think this gave me new perspectives, especially when it came to things like ECAP and pre-K. And so I do appreciate these presentations that we're presented with. The other thing is just highlighting again that the superintendent and I will continuously work with all of our stakeholders, the public, our education advocates, unions, and legislators across the state to really fight for the long overdue time to fund education and to find alternative ways to not place additional burdens on those who are already working incredibly hard in supporting our students, our families, our next generation. And so with that, I will start to try to get my board or the legislative reports in a little bit more earlier. So I'll work with Naomi and then also with the superintendent to see how can we disseminate some critical information to the public if we feel like as a team that's necessary or relevant, just for additional information. And yeah, I think it was mentioned 2 weeks we'll be going to the Hill. And so if there's any additional questions, I know people have already started sending me a few emails regarding the legislative session. And so I'm happy to respond and then also loop in other members of the team if there are additional questions that come forth. Otherwise, I look forward to a really busy session.
Thank you, Director Song. Vice President Gregory.
I too want to thank our KEA members coming tonight and sticking through. I was happy to attend the Legislative 26 conference. It is for WASDA, WASA, and WASBO. I didn't know what WASBO was, and I found out it was really great. I was able to attend several different sessions, and I want to give a highlight to two of them. The first one is a session on student voice, and I believe that last meeting, Director Cook was like, I would like to have students. And I was like, how do we make that happen? So I did attend one of the most interesting sessions. I was able to talk to kids from Shoreline, Issaquah, and other school districts that are serving in that capacity as a student on their school board, how it works and some best practices. And I was like, okay, I'm gonna take this back. We're gonna request a session and we're gonna talk about it. But it was really great to talk to them about how the engagement goes and what benefit and value they get out of it. The other sessions that I was able to attend were budget, which is one of those hot topics for us. But I wanted to share, and I think we mentioned it when we had the budget in-person meeting on Monday night. I attended that along with Director Song and Director Cook. We were all there observing. So I appreciate people attending those and all of the questions that you brought forward, because now we can get details and get them posted. And I truly appreciate people taking the time out of their busy lives and going and sharing that. But I find it interesting about the public model, and this was confirmed when I was there. It's modeled two ways. One's by students, so how many students you have, you get so much money. But the second model, which I don't think we really talk about, is they look at your district size and then they spit out how many teachers you need, and those two things are broken. That model is broken, and I've heard that from many school districts, not just on this side of the mountains, but on the other side, where the model for the teacher side of it is not keeping up with the student side. So while we get money for the students, which is great, and we're getting that money, and it is falling behind. They are lower, it's lower than what we've gotten in the past, but the teacher model is broken. And that is one of the areas that I think from a legislative perspective that we need to look at, talk to our representatives and say, hey, yeah, you're giving us money for kids, but where's the money for the teachers? So that's, I think, part of that model that I think we need to highlight for people, and more to come on that. And then the last thing about the legislative meeting that I got to do was I got to talk to a lot of superintendents. I don't know how that happened, but I was talking to different ones from around the districts and really digging into them on how we can be better as a board, what transparency looks like, what does that mean for other people, and getting their insights, as well as talking to other school board members. So it was a great session for me. I'm thankful that I was allowed to go and attend and get that insight, and I'll be sharing more information as we go through our work sessions as they come up, and I'll share what else I learned.
Thank you, Vice President Gregory. I'd like to say congratulations again to Brian Smith for AD of the Year for the NPSL. And I know this was brought up in the superintendent report, but the SALT program, the Student Athlete Leadership Team, great program for that he started around being able to bring leadership to this group, and then also bringing information back and sharing that. So leadership is not just something that you do by yourself, it's something that you have to be leading others, and they need to be experienced in that. And so I know some of the topics I've seen is like nutrition for female athletes and different topics that are very hot within the schools, especially around students and athletics. I'd like to thank the administration and the board for the board retreat, and those who just really chose to dive in and use it as a time for really building relationships. It is a board of 5 acting as one, and the more community that we can have, I think those board retreats are important, and I look forward to them increasing in frequency. I'd like to point out that we have only 150 days, calendar days, until graduation. And so I know I continue to look at that and that looming date. I had the opportunity to see the DECA regionals for our area, and super impressed. All 4 comprehensive schools, along with KLA, were all represented at the DECA regionals. We had students, I believe that there's something like 140 different categories, 120 different categories. It's immense, much bigger than I even thought. But what an amazing opportunity as somebody in the community to see skills really being taught that we're looking for in the business environment for students to be able to participate in and have that as they graduate onto something. And so fantastic program, and I know that we will be represented well as a district in the state competition coming up. Something I did want to point out, it was, this was many different schools in our region, and it was a Kent School District student, Maisha Situ, who kind of ran the regional program this time, and did a fantastic job. And more than anything, it was really fun to see kids having fun doing business. So loved that. And I think that there's also some interest in them coming and speaking at a board meeting to talk a little bit more about the DECA program and what that looks like. Can't wait to see the remainder of the board at Pack the Gym on the 22nd. So much fun just cheering for every single participant in that, and everything that happens along the way. So much fun, and all of us coming together as one Kent School District. Last, I'd just like to say thank you, students. We do this for you, and we appreciate what you give us, and we hope to give back to you in a little bit. So, in a little way, I should say, for all that you give us. So, it is 8:55, and we are adjourned.
Bye-bye.